Councilmember Steve Strand,
Here.
Councilmember Kevin Ballard,
Here.
Councilmember Kurt Markgraf,
Here.
and Acting Mayor Steve Foster. Mayor Brent Fraser is absent today.
Okay, we'll go right to the Pledge of Allegiance here. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Does anybody have any citizens' comments? Seeing none, we'll move on. Any deletions or additions to the agenda?
I move to approve the agenda as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve the agenda as presented. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Approval of the consent agenda. And I'll read that. Approval of the council minutes from September 13th and August 25th. Approval of accounts payable listings, staff reports, and liquor store reports in the packet.
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve the agenda, consent agenda as is. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Dean Birkland and Carlson SV, which is, you've been given financial statement and audit here, and they're going to talk about it.
Yeah, we're going to talk, well, we're not going to talk a lot of numbers, but we're going to talk about the audit. So, but thank you, Mayor, and good to be here this afternoon to run through the audit report, and we've got a lot of things on the agenda today, so I've whittled it down to 1 hour. So,
Okay, yeah.
be patient, everyone. It won't be an hour, I'll guarantee that. So, but we're just going to run through the report here, some of our mostly audit reports. We're really not going to look at the numbers at this point. I think it's fair to say the numbers the city has been getting from Danielle and the city administration are accurate and good solid numbers, and that's through our audit procedures. We believe those numbers are fairly stated, and that's a good thing for the council to know that those numbers are good solid numbers as you guys go out throughout the years. So it looks like you have your audit report, so I'll just make reference to some of the page numbers, and we'll just briefly look at some of those pages. And page 1 is the independent auditor's report, and the very top first couple of paragraphs are that's where the auditors have to give an opinion on the financial statements. And these opinions are what we call unmodified opinions, the vast majority of them. And in our business, that's the best opinion that the auditor can give. And it doesn't matter if it's the biggest firm in the world, it's still going to look similar to this report. So from an audit standpoint, it's I guess, lack of a better way to put it, it's as good as it gets. And certainly I think the council would be expecting an unmodified, clean opinion once after you get through the audit. So from my standpoint, it's probably the most important part of the audit. But I'm biased on the auditors, so that's my opinion. So if you guys want to jump, we're going to jump way to the back of the report. I want to turn to page 82. As part of the audit, we have to get or have an understanding of the city internal controls. And as part of that internal control work, we have just three findings that I just want to make note of. And the first one on page 82 is financial statement preparation. If the auditors prepare the financial statements and all the footnotes and all the disclosures, we have to report that as an internal control finding. And in our world, this is very common to the rest of our city audits. And we audit quite a few Minnesota cities. And really, it's a cost-benefit issue. If the city were to remove this finding and hire another firm or something to prepare the financial statements, it would just be redundant and add additional cost. But most of our audits have a similar finding. So the second finding is on page 83, and this one is segregation of duties. And again, as part of the audit, we look at the internal controls, and ideally, every transaction should have two sets of eyes on it. And quite often that is the case, but every once in a while there may be a transaction that doesn't have that two sets of eyes on it. And so it's really the barometer is the ideal segregation of duties. And the city actually has very good internal controls, but this barometer is what we call the ideal segregation of duties. And in our world, it's about probably a 95% finding rate in most of our audits. So it's very common. The last page here is page 84. And there's one more finding. This is audit adjustments. Some of the audit adjustments we make are material audit adjustments, and that's in connection with what we call government-wide financial statements, and the same as the last two findings. It's a very common finding, and it's just part of our reporting. We have to report those type of adjustments as an internal control finding. So. Okay, that takes care of a run through the audit report. We also issue a separate letter. It's, I don't, you guys have that letter? Okay. Yeah, it's the communication to those charged with governance. And I won't go through all the different items there, but we're required to issue this letter. And everything in the letter is, there's nothing out of the ordinary. Everything is really standard, if you will, and but we are required to issue this letter, and I just want to comment that everything is really pretty standard, nothing out of the ordinary. So with that, it's a pretty quick hour, but I made it. But Danielle and her team do a very good job, and are very responsive and really good to work with on the audit. So I want to thank Danielle and her team and for all the help. And just one last thing I have, we did come across, I thought there was a retirement that we came across, I think at the end of the year, and I think that was Don. So this is our last opportunity to thank Don for all the help over the years too. So thank you, Don.
Thank you.
Yeah. So with that, if there's any questions about the audit, I'd be happy to take any questions.
He still has 52 minutes.
Yeah.
Well, I can keep going, but these guys, they take me out.
Any questions from the council? With the three things that you found, preparation of financial statements, related footnotes, segregation of duties, and audit adjustments, a lot of that's just due to our small size, right?
It is, yep.
Have any of the other small cities found a way to solve these problems?
I think the short answer is no.
Okay.
For the most part, for the most part, they've lived with the findings. They might try to, have somebody, if they happen to have someone, let's say there might be a CBA or something locally, that they have looked at the report and try to get rid of that preparation of financial statement finding, but very seldom, for the most part, the findings are so common, and these reports go to the state of Minnesota. The state of Minnesota looks at it, they look at those findings, and I have never, me personally, I've never heard the state there really is no repercussions from the state, for having those findings, the ones that we went through today. So I think that's part of the reason that most of the cities live with it.
Okay.
So, yeah.
All right. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you bet. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Dean. We need to approve.
Yeah.
I move to approve the audit report. I'll second.
Moved and seconded to approve the audit report. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next thing on the agenda is local foods, local places. We've got Judy Cabot and Emily Reno. They've got a thing in the packet that they prepared, so I will let them discuss it.
Judy Tabbitt, thank you for supporting all of the local foods and local places. We started this training 2 years ago now, and we have, I think, accomplished a lot of things, okay? We've got the little farmer's market that's going, the grow shed, and I tried really hard to buy a head of lettuce that they are growing at Larry's, and as soon as it comes in, it's gone, I guess. So they didn't have any in there, but I was going to show you one of the heads of lettuce that they grow in the grow shed out there. It's very good. And so we have the farmer's market, and one of the things that we do at the farmer's market, there is somebody called Ben, and he uses a commercial kitchen that he tries to get into in Fargo. And he makes barbecue sauces, and this is the hottest pepper sauce he has. So he comes to the farmer's market almost every week. So we wanted to have a kitchen feasibility study done, and so Emily is going to give you a summary on that.
Thanks, Judy, and thank you for having us. I wanted to just provide a little bit of context for the presentation and then we'll get into the slides. I don't know if it's possible to zoom in on those just to make it more visible for folks.
Actually,
But that might be helpful.
That's
Because I do
about
think
as-
there's going to be some numbers in there.
yeah, I think that's about as big as I'm gonna get it.
Okay. All right, we'll make it work. For those of you who don't know, I'm Emily Reno. Context on update in my position. So you may have known me as working as an assistant planner with West Central Initiative. At the end of July, I decided to leave my position and sort of go into entrepreneurship full time. So that's what I'm doing now, working in consulting in community and economic development, and also launching online learning for farmers, reducing their barriers to land and capital access. So I'm still highly engaged in this local foods work, just through a different role within my position. And we are actively seeking opportunities to finance my time to be able to continue to work on this, because I do believe there's a lot of alignment with what I'm, hoping to do to support people and, the need and interest that is here in Pelican Rapids. So, on that note, Kate Mudge has taken over as sort of the facilitator of the Local Foods, Local Places Steering Committee, and she works with West Central Initiative now. So that's just a good update. And we're really just trying to, continue to have updates to the City Council to strengthen our relationship, make sure that you know what the steering committee is up to and what we have been working on, because I think a lot of our success also depends on just transparency and communication. So we can go to the next slide.
I think, Emily, what I'll do, instead of using the presentation mode, I'll just scroll through it. That way I
Okay,
can zoom
that's
in and
great.
out
Yeah.
if you want me to do that. Just let me know when you want to go to the next one then.
Okay. So just as a reminder to folks, the Local Foods, Local Places objective is to support and expand local agriculture, cultivate a healthy community, and increase access to affordable local food. You want the next one? And as part of the action planning process, we had identified a couple of goals within that. One was to support food entrepreneurs to start and grow their businesses, and then the other one was to enhance Pelican Rapids' reputation as a food destination. Within those planned sort of goals, there were some sub-actions, one of which was to conduct a commercial kitchen feasibility study, and then the other is to connect aspiring or early food businesses to existing resources. So one of the reasons behind conducting a commercial kitchen feasibility study was trying to think about how are we filling a need that currently exists within the region. There is currently available kitchen space, but often that's only available through churches or family-based arrangements, or it's just unavailable unless you're catering an event at that specific kitchen. One of the nearest shared commercial kitchens that is available with rental options is an hour away, which is one of the things that Judy was mentioning. There is a bridge that's needed for those who are wishing to scale up their production from a cottage food license, which is when you are making something, processing it at home, and then you are selling outside of retail environments. So this would allow people to sell in those retail spaces and do so legally. This would also help sort of boost Pelican Rapids' economic competitiveness and opportunity to really celebrate cultural diversity through entrepreneurship. So in this study, which we did conduct over the summer, we worked with our steering committee to raise funds, West Central Initiative, and other folks to basically put the money towards conducting this study. We hired 2 consultants based out of Alexandria to do that. They had a really short timeline in order for us to be able to leverage some matching funds from the Agricultural Utilization Research Institute, and this was conducted in late July. And I will say, we did have this on the agenda a couple of times, so hopefully this isn't the first time that you've seen the study. We finally got it to a copy edited version to you, and so hopefully you had a little bit of a chance to look at some of the content and also the appendices. This presentation is really to highlight some of the findings from it. So we identified 13 possible locations, and the steering committee worked sort of over the last several months to look at that list and kind of narrow down based on the interest, sort of needs that we're seeing, what might be some of the most likely of those. We had looked at 2 that would be highly likely that were maybe a new construction, and then 2 options for spaces that could be a renovation. We had looked at an agreement sort of within the steering committee. We did an internal survey, and there were a lot of people that said the facility should have space to grow if it needs to. We did explore the senior center as a potential option and found through all of our conversations with folks that it wouldn't meet the needs that the community has desired in terms of shared use between Meals on Wheels and also serving people that want to scale up their food businesses because of the legal requirements of each of those entities. So you kind of have to have separate space. If you have more questions about that, Judy has a lot more information that she can share. And if there were needed to be any kind of meat processing, that also has its own set of license requirements. We still need to select a final site, and so we're kind of in that process right now. So the question is, who would use it? In the process of the survey, we identified 218 potential users, and we found the following. 67% or 14 of those food businesses were interested in using this space. 62% or 8 of those users expressed that they would be able to use the kitchen for 5 to 10 hours a week. 31% or 4 of those would anticipate using it between 1 and 4 hours a week. And there was additional interest that was expressed from entities outside of those business owners that could see a benefit from having this. Things such as nonprofits, the churches, hosting things like benefit dinners, using it for the food shelf, SNAP Ed education, being able to offer it to family and friends who are maybe doing some large meal prep, and then also garden preservation use. So we've got an awesome community garden in town, but there's not a lot of space or opportunities for people to take those, process it into something that they can preserve, and then later have that available to them into the winter time. Question, would it be profitable So what's really cool is that it would actually, with the projections that we were able to generate, it's highly likely that we would be able to source the capital costs for this initiative with agreeable terms from the USDA grants and loans that were identified. And then also cover the first 3 years of operating costs for this, which would include hiring an employee to manage the kitchen and also the marketing, which could be covered by a USDA grant or loan. It also, sort of in our research, it showed that there was a higher number of potential users than most community applicants in the first 3 years, and that's without any marketing. And some of that comes from just the short amount of time that we had to survey people and how much interest that we were able to sort of uncover. So when it came to the actual projections, and I will say I'm not a numbers person, we did work with a consultant with the West Central Small Business Development Center to help us with these projections. What they had anticipated, and this is based on applying for grants at the end of this year and early spring, was that by 2025, it would be able to generate $50,300. The following year, about $26,000 more. And then in 2027, $95,157. And this asterisk assumes city ownership, and that's the nature of the types of grants that had been identified to fund this project. So one of those grants that was identified was the USDA Community Facilities and Loan and Grant Program. It provides less than $5 million for the purchase, construction of essential community facilities. This would allow for purchasing equipment and pay for related project expenses. The eligibility for this, it has to be at local food systems such as community gardens, food pantries, or community kitchens, of which this would make it eligible. Providing an essential service to the local community, it would have to carry out a function customarily provided by a local unit of government, and then being located in a rural area, in this case less than 20,000 residents. Some of the risk factors associated with this are sort of the term. So what percentage of the money coming in would be a grant versus a loan, and a lot of that has to do with the demographics of your community, how many people are living within poverty or within your community, and they basically calculate, okay, it would be more of a grant if you've got certain metrics that you meet versus a loan. You can apply at any time, and then you can stop sort of the loan process at any time. An opportunity zone is kind of those indicators that I was mentioning, related to sort of like poverty levels and then demographics within the community. And this is sort of a designation nationally that they've got maps, and they say, okay, this area is worth investing in because of how much sort of people could gain. There still needs to be funding identified to actually write the grant or loan. And so the next question is, who would actually be paying for the operating for this? So that's where the LFPP, or USDA Local Food Promotion Program, comes in. This would fund the planning and implementation. It would pay for 3 years of payroll and marketing. And there is an example of this already having been done in Prescott, Arizona. They applied for this. We do have access to a copy of their grant application. They're willing to share that with us. And the at least next upcoming deadline for that is March of 2023. So where are we at as a steering committee in terms of processing all of this information, figuring out what is the city's relationship in this, how do we ensure that this is going to be carried forward and is effective? We decided that we needed to sort of regroup, and we were thinking about we need to leverage our track record and continue to build positive momentum around this. So, like Judy mentioned, we did the action planning process. We have a really active steering committee. The farmers market has been really great. We're excited to work with the city to think about, how do you move forward on this comprehensive planning, sort of implementation. Lots of local food stuff is included in that. And so now, having completed the feasibility study, we're really looking at how can we formalize a structure around participation and sort of recruit and cultivate new leadership that can help carry this forward. Because with the existing sort of set of volunteers we have, there just isn't the capacity to be able to do this in a way that's going to be high quality. So what we're going to be doing is looking for specific skill sets within finance, legal, marketing and communications, kitchen licensing, real estate construction, and architectural design. We're going to be focusing on getting buy-in partnership from West Central Initiative to carry this forward. So our timeline right now, what we're working on this month is actually developing position descriptions for leadership roles within the steering committee that would basically be a working group for this commercial kitchen project. And in October, we will work on marketing and outreach for involvement. So putting out a poster that says, are you interested in joining this working group? Please submit your application. We would love to hear from you. And really working to strategically recruit new members for this group. And then in November, our goal is to review the applications and basically have the working group meet regularly. And the goal for that is to identify, okay, what is the next steps in terms of applying for these federal grants and loans? Where might the funding be able to come for that? Looking at the site selection once again, probably making another presentation to City Council or finding a way to have that conversation. And then we were thinking about hosting a community engagement event and sort of having almost like an open house to be able to share with people what is a commercial kitchen, how could it benefit the community, sharing maybe opportunities for people to continuing to engage the work, recruit people that might be interested in contributing to this in the future. So that's all I've got for you now. I know that was a lot of information, but I'm here and Judy is here to answer any questions that you've got. I just want to clarify, there is no official ask from the city at this time because we really want to work on building up our people power to be able to carry this work forward and get clarity, and we just want to be sure that the city knows where we're at in this process.
Any questions from the council?
Yeah, I do. This is a lot of stuff, Emily. Boy.
Yes, there's a lot of appendices and a lot of information there.
So, I don't know what page number, but it lists, there's 2 tables of people, and it doesn't really tell me what they were doing.
Could you describe a little bit more about the table that you're looking at?
Well, it has, how many people on it? Are they, I'm not sure.
Could be steering committee members.
That's the initial committee, Steve.
Okay.
And that's probably providing a little bit of context for who initially was brought to the table for sort of the steering committee for the action plan.
I'm a business kind of person, and one of my biggest issues is this competes with people like Jose downtown that's investing money right now with his restaurant. And that part doesn't seem real fair to me. And some of your profit numbers seem really high. And then I read about a food truck, the average revenue is $290,000 a year. That seems, I think we should all get a food truck, so. I guess that's all I can come up.
I'd be curious to know, so you said that this would be competing with Escobar's, you said?
Wouldn't it take away from a private business some?
I think this is really designed to help people who are trying to sell like value-added products in retail places, but it's not a food service place. You can't go there to dine. It would just be a place where somebody has access to a kitchen to be able to process their food and then sell it elsewhere, whether that's in the community or not.
I have a question along that lines then.
Yeah.
With what you guys have learned about the community kitchen and the produce or production coming out of it, would it be fair to say that there may be opportunities from what's produced in that commercial kitchen for Jose to buy things to use in making his food at the restaurant?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Good?
Yep, I believe that the Mexican restaurants are doing that.
Really?
Yeah, they're buying some of the local stuff from the community garden. And I know somebody else that has a big garden, they're selling lots of their stuff to Spanky's. So there's lots of people that are doing stuff, they just don't have a place to market what they're growing. The guy that makes this has a farm that he rents, the guy doesn't like to mow his lawn, so they planted it all with herbs and spices and things to grow his stuff.
You think of the idea of, and that's the whole concept of local foods, local places, is the whole idea of people producing stuff in their garden, having a place to, come to a final product that can be used locally, and that supply chain is shortened because it's all done locally from garden to restaurant, ingredients type thing, as opposed to having to buy it from some long distance, place that trucks it up this way, that type of thing. So the concept is good. It's just a matter of whether it all comes together and actually works that well to where, your profit margins and stuff that you guys come up with work. One of the things I'll say is I was a part of the conversation with the USDA when we met and talked about this whole thing, and obviously they had somebody help them work out the budget and the numbers, and that was based on assumptions. For instance, like you had kind of showed in there, $5 million, roughly $5 million project, and there's a lot of things that and assumptions that have to be made when you guys were doing this. The facility, whether you construct a new one, whether you remodel one, that type of thing. And the one thing that came out of the USDA conversation that I think everybody was clear, and you kind of alluded to it, if you've got to pick a place. At some point, a place has to be picked, whether it's going to be one of the two construction ones or one of the two renovation ones, and that really sets the stage for what happens next, because USDA needs to know, are you building a place or are you renovating a place? And then the budget to do that would then all kind of get shaken out, and you'd have a better idea for the USDA applications and stuff, how much money, loan grant, you really are looking for, and what percent is going to be loan grant. So, as I see it, one of the next steps, like you were referring to, once you have that working group and that steering committee, is to figure out what the project is going to be. Is it going to be build a place, or is it going to be buy a place and renovate it? Once you're to that point, I think things would kind of start falling into place. To the extent that the city wants to do them, yes.
Emily, did you say you have two buildings you're looking at that could be renovated?
Yes, I think there were two renovation, two new construction. And I wish I had those off the top of my head.
No, that's fine. All right. Thank you for answering my questions.
So for the USDA grants, the two words that jump out at me when you're talking about the grants is highly likely. Highly likely. But there's also a possibility of not getting those grants, correct?
Yeah.
So if how competitive are those USDA grants? And have you seen or noticed that outstate communities access those USD grants at the same amount or the same rate as metro communities?
So yes, they are highly competitive. What makes Pelican Rapids rank higher in terms of the USDA's criteria when they're evaluating them is the nature of the community itself, because it's so ethnically diverse. It's checking all of these boxes, especially right now, like the USDA is trying to make aggressive investments in things that they're like, these communities are underrepresented or underserved, or people haven't been investing resources in them. So I think also because of the nature of, being in greater Minnesota, these ones are particularly, it said less than 20,000 people. So again, because it's such a small community, it also ranks higher on that front. I would think that in general, this is just a trend that I've seen from other work that I've done, is that there tends to be more organizations that have the capacity to do the grant writing in urban places. So you're naturally going to see more applications come out of highly populated communities versus less. I'm not sure with this one where it's less than 20,000 people, if that's similar, where you see the ones with 15,000 people within the community versus 5 ranking differently. But that's just my lack of experience with reviewing USDA proposals myself.
How busy is this commercial kitchen in Fargo?
Ben rents this, and he has to book it a year in advance. And his herbs were ready, and so he couldn't come last Friday because he said, I have my scheduled appointment there. They really only have 2 kitchens in that building, the square one in Fargo. And he's booked himself every month to get in. Plus, when I was visiting with him, he can build a kitchen. He's in construction. He was really interested if we were gonna build a kitchen, because he does construction.
Is the one in Fargo city-owned, or
No. I
it's
don't-
private owned?
Privately owned, yep.
Okay. How many days a week is it booked, or you know that?
Well, I know that when I went up to use it, we only used it for 4 hours, and there were 4 of us that went up. And at that time, they had one kitchen that was used full-time because the Cass County Jail didn't have a kitchen. So one of those kitchens was booked full-time for the jail. So that's the kinds of things that happen with that commercial kitchen, is that somebody was doing construction, so the jail was using that for 6 months or 9 months, so they only really had one available.
Judy, how much is it per hour when he rents?
I haven't rented it now recently because I'm using my cottage license, but it was $25 an hour. It's probably more than that now.
Okay.
But we could use one kitchen, and several of us could use, the convection oven, the mixing. There was a big space for us, so the 4 of us could share, but we were there for like 4 hours.
And I think in the financial assumptions for the feasibility study, they estimated $75 a day, and then I think it was $50 for a half day was what we would charge essentially for one here in Pelican.
When we talk about the grants, is that a one-time thing? I mean, is like it just to help get the building built?
Yes.
And it's not an ongoing grant that would help for keeping it going?
3 years?
Yeah, I mean, it's for 3 years to start. So
Okay.
it would be a pretty significant initial investment. And then, yeah, based on how many users there would be that ramp up over that time, that would pay for the operating costs.
Because sometimes at school, you get a grant and then it runs out and you have to come up with some money to keep it
Yes, that's
going.
a legitimate concern. And I think that's why we really wanted to do these financial projections, was to figure out, is this actually financially feasible? And I think that's been a really big question for the city too, is we don't want to make this investment if it's just going to die after a few years.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Well, thank you. You've given us a lot to think about, so,
Thank you, appreciate it.
all right. Next up on the agenda is Brian Corp and Wayne Johnson to talk about Trailhead. And I'll let Wayne do the talking on this here. He's good at it, so.
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Mayor, I'm Wayne Johnson with Ottertail County. I'm a commissioner there, and that's exactly what Brian said. He goes, "You get to go first." So, not sure what that means. Thanks for the opportunity to come and speak with you all. I'm going to tell you a little story, and I'm going to try and be brief, which is hard for me some days. But so, 2 weeks ago or so, I approached Mr. Korf and unofficially the chair of the school board and said, we've got the trail built. We have nowhere for people to park. So they were parking at the Dairy Queen, and they were parking at Larry's, and they were parking at who knows where. So I approached Mr. Korf, had a conversation with Mr. Carter, who I think's in the room, and said, hey, can we use the south end of your brand new parking lot that's been all painted and striped and all those kinds of things as a temporary trailhead. We just want to put some signs up, park, do those kinds of things. Well, in the last 2 weeks or so, actually presented to the school board and talked about and got the approval to do those kinds of things and everything like that. And in that exact same conversation, and sometimes it's good to be lucky, right? Mr. Korf shared with me that, well, they were looking at a ticket booth, new bathrooms, etc. for the football field. That, as you know, the facilities there are built in 1979. They certainly don't house the amount of people that come to our football games or our track meets and those kinds of things. And so the school was actually looking at building a facility for that purpose, at least presenting that to the school board and things like that. And actually, credit to Mr. Carter, said, well, why don't we look at partnering with the school, the county, the city, on making that a facility that is good for everyone in the community. It's good for the school, it's good for the trail system that's coming through, that is here and continues to go. There's another segment planned going up Highway 59. You folks have a complete streets project and grant, all those kinds of things. And so we just thought, you know, this is a perfect opportunity that we get together and decide, okay, can we all partner together? Can we come to an agreement on some structure, some, I'll call it a trailhead? And I know you've talked about a trailhead, and actually when we had the initial meeting, we included one of the Parks and Trails directors, Amy King. She came, sat down, gave us kind of the tentative areas you had blocked out, but really no plans, and then I see Bob's on the agenda. Regarding a plan, but we just talked about, wouldn't this be a terrific opportunity? And then along with that, we know, and Brian, this might be where you get to step in, you're looking at potentially helping the school or helping with a warming house, because they've now created a spot for an ice rink. And do you want to talk about the warming house a little bit?
Yep. So Mr. Soga and I talked late August, early September. We talked about the warming house, that we're going to have this skating rink up there. I don't think the warming house can be moved again. It's an older building. It houses all the skates, and it's a place for when they arrive to go to, of course, and get their skates on, and a warm building. So we're going to move up. We're going to move the skating rink up to, they call it Van Hogen Hill, I believe is what they call that hill. It's right by the sledding hill, which is a great place to have it. People can sled, and then people can skate. So what we're looking at, working with the city, partnering with the city, partnering with the county, and what the city piece would be is including the warming house in this building. So we removed that little building there. The skates, everything would be stored in part of that building, and then the warming house. And we would have it on the side of the skating rink. So if you look at where the building is currently now, it's going north and south. We would go more east and west with the building, and then the northern part of the building would be where the warming house would be at if the city's interested in partnering with us in this building. I would like to remove that smaller building. I'd like to have that removed and then have the warming house part of that building if possible.
I would say that is a great idea. That warming house is much too small for the amount of skates we have and the people that use the skates. And the building is not going to be moved in one piece ever again. It's going to go in one piece after the move we just had, honestly.
And the other, if I may, Mr. Mayor, thanks, Brian, but you're right, I've looked at it, it's not good. The other piece of this is now we would have a warming house, potentially, not this winter obviously, but potentially even as soon as next winter, that we would have a warming house that actually has a warm bathroom instead of a portable toilet at sub-zero temperatures. The city owns that portable toilet, and I can tell you that using them while skating is not a real hoot. And so that's the other piece of this. I just think it's a tremendous opportunity for the city, the county, the school, and everyone to partner in something to help the entire community. You know, we've talked about at the county level, actually, we have some funds available, and we have committed funds to an architectural firm, and they are putting together some preliminary plans. So we talked to Trevor a little bit. We are going to be speaking with Trevor again Friday morning, I believe. And so we just we're not looking for a dollar commitment. We don't even have an idea what the dollar commitment would be. We're just looking to the city and say, hey, can we get affirmation from you that you will consider or partner with us to at least do the warming house piece of this structure as we move forward. I think it would be great. The other thing, and I know that there's consideration about, well, we were planning a trailhead downtown. That doesn't mean that you still can't, right? I mean, there's a good spot, there's all kinds of parking, downtown is limited parking, but that doesn't mean that the repair station that is being put in or has been put in down there, that's a bad thing, because we want these businesses to go downtown. The county originally, just for edification, the county originally planned a trailhead at Lake Region Electric, and the city, the chamber, everyone, the county commissioner from the area said, no, 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 no. We need this downtown to drive business and tourism and those things downtown. And then happenstance walked along and ran into, and in 3 years' time, you're going to have bike track paths that lead you right down Main Street. Am I right on that? So to me, a perfect opportunity for 3 entities to share in some costs and to partner. And right now, I'm just looking to see, are you willing to do that, or are you not interested? Because right now, the county and the school are very, very interested in doing this collaboratively.
Steve?
I think it's a great idea. Thank you.
I do too.
I'll take that as a yes. All right, thank you. Appreciate your time.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Senior Citizen Center, Lana Grassroots.
Hi. Lana Grassroots, Beverly Laser. Mayor and Councilman, thank you for letting me talk to you again. I've been a thorn in your side all summer watching all your meetings. I presented to you last spring, or this spring, in hopes to buy the senior citizen building. At that time, it was kind of discussed because of the local foods, local places feasibility study, just kind of put it on hold until things cleared up. So I'm here again with that same ask of buying that building. We can go over some hurdles as I see it. As Emily and Judy explained, that the community kitchen would not be work in that building, so I'm considering that good news for my case. I know the park board has a lot of plans for that space, which is great. I'm curious, with the funding that's going to come, what's the timeline on that? Like, is the pool going to be put on hold? Like, there's a lot of unanswered questions on that. My business is growing. I'm ready to move in as soon as I can get it renovated. I need a place to be in town. It would bring income for you guys, taxable income. Yeah, I kind of went off my script here, but. On the website, there is a page that's called the Economic and Business Development from the 2016 study. To my knowledge, all of you are part of that study, or part of that program, correct? Or no? Basically, the BR&E, the 5 objectives to demonstrate and support local businesses, help solve immediate business concerns, to increase local businesses' ability to compete in the global economy, and to establish and implement a strategic plan for economic development. I'll be honest, I've been doing a lot of looking at properties lately, both in town and out of town. I grew up in Pelican, I graduated from Pelican, I moved, I came back. I do a lot of work for locals, for the school. I want to keep my business in Pelican. That's where I'm at right now. When I quit my job 4 years ago, I was under contract, I couldn't work for a year, so I was bootstrapping, I worked for my dad, I kind of figured things out. I finally launched my business, Hillbilly Laser, right during COVID. I built this business from the ground up. It's thriving. I'm adding new machines. Like, I'm on year 2.5 and I'm already on my 5-year goal. So things are growing. I love sharing my story. I love sharing my journey with others who are on the same path. And I would love to include the city and the council in my success story of being able to be in town. So if you're serious about wanting to relocate this property that you guys acquired, you don't necessarily weren't receptive to wanting it, to my understanding. Are you interested in a talking price, or what's your thoughts on that?
Here. I would like to sell the building to Lana. I would too. Yep.
Me too.
Okay.
So what, is there a hurdle still with the, I don't remember where we discussed before the Meals on Wheels operation out of there?
That was the hurdle, the feasibility study, making sure that that wasn't going to be a conflict from the commercial kitchen point of view.
Right.
And it's not, and as far as, the only hurdle would be just getting it ready to use. I mean,
We have 2 facilities in town that currently make meals for an elderly population. Is it possible for them to contract with either of those facilities to make, I mean, we're not talking like 1,000 meals, what is it, like 100 meals
It's 1,000 meals a month.
1,000 meals a month?
What's 1,000 meals a month?
Senior.
So the nutrition services down at the senior center now is 1,000 meals a month. What 2 facilities are you referring to?
Well, we have the clinic, Sanford Clinic, and we have the former Good Sam. I mean, they both
Okay,
have
so-
kitchens that cook meals for their,
So first, that's got to be what's got to be addressed is contacting these 2 facilities, see if they're interested, but also, is there going to be some type of a conflict like there is with the commercial kitchen that Emily Reno and Judy have been studying? Is it possible, first of all, for that nutrition food services to go with somebody else and then, or into another kitchen, and then are they willing to accept them? But bottom line is, I think one of the discussions, that's a hurdle. It was the community kitchen part, but also nutrition food services, because everybody felt that the senior meals program is very important and needs to stay. So at one point, we were talking about, is that still possible in that location to have, turn the building over to Lana, but still have assurances that they'd be able to stay there as long as they're able to stay there?
yeah.
That's what I was
And
referring
I'm okay
to.
with that, like,
Your business could operate
yes,
seamlessly
yes,
alongside of
yeah,
the kitchen working.
yeah.
And we could have them conversations, Kevin, to see if that's a possibility that they could connect up and it would work without affecting what you guys would possibly do for Lana in the building.
I mean, I wasn't
Yeah.
saying that we should, I mean, I don't even know if it's possible. I don't even know if it's.
That's my only hurdle, from the first minute that you reached out to us about it. Then there was some sidebar issues that popped up, given what we've all talked about here tonight.
Yeah.
My concern is still that I believe that program is irreplaceable. We can't, it won't be able to just cease and desist, so.
No, I
We would
agree.
also have to discuss with them, nutrition services, are they still able to function with a commercial business in the same same building? Under USDA guidelines, things like that, I mean, those are questions. Yes, I would love for you to have that business move in tomorrow. That'd be great. Building, rather. But those are questions before I could ever make a final decision on that need to be answered.
Okay.
Again, Judy said 1,000 meals a month. That's 1,000 meals a month that people probably aren't going to get offered again in this city, and we have it currently.
Right. So you want me to reach out to USDA? You want me to reach out to?
No.
the
No,
ladies
I
in the
think it's-
kitchen
Oh,
and
Wayne's
see-
got a question. Mayor.
Yeah, please.
So, thank you for allowing me, and I don't mean to step in other than I've spoke, because there's a lot of conversation about Meals on Wheels, right? And so I've spoke with Nutrition Services, it's been about 6 months ago now, when this whole commercial kitchen and all those things started. What I recall from the conversation was their biggest thing that they'll lose is the congregate meals, because it's very important socially for these people to be able to get out and go somewhere and have a meal. Well, I don't believe they're doing that now because of the concerns about handicap accessibility and all that. And that's a side conversation as far as that goes. I think Kurt's spot on with that. But what they did say was, and I was looking at intro, okay, if they tear this down and do a commercial kitchen, she said, well, we'll find a spot short term to produce meals or home delivery, but there won't be any congregate meals, there won't be anything like that and those kinds of things. And again, this was, I'd have to look and see who I spoke with, but that was their comment was, well, if we have to, we'll find somewhere to prepare these meals on an interim basis while the kitchen is, that was when we were having a conversation about turning that building into a commercial kitchen. So I think I can get a name or whatever and make sure that there's a workable solution for that.
We've got the contacts.
Okay.
It's just a matter of the city reaching out and having a conversation with NSI to, so that they're brought into the conversation to know, here's what we're thinking about doing. How does that affect you? And, and work with them to figure out if it's not an issue with them being in there, well, then they got a place to stay. Ultimately, even if you get the business in there, they might start kind of putting them feelers out and figuring out where maybe is a better location for them in Pelican to keep it here. And then as the city moves forward and plans forward, whether it's a commercial kitchen, community center, whatever type thing, there's always that option of possibly moving them into another facility under the, kind of city facility, if a community center ever gets put together or something, whatever. But I think it's just a matter of us contacting NSI and starting to have a conversation with them about it. And then if it's not an issue with them and doesn't create problems with them, then I think it's back to the same process we went through upstairs. It's a facility, a community facility, hold a public hearing on it, make sure everybody's, square on the terms of the agreement and make the transaction happen.
It sounds again like the timeline's getting stretched out, and you're probably wanting to be an answer given or moved in when? ASAP, I would assume.
Yeah, but it'll do, yeah.
Okay.
I think the city council should think, if this is the road you want to go down, and sound like this is where what you want to do, I think you should basically think about, by the next meeting, having an idea of holding a public hearing and calling that public hearing, so that piece of the puzzle is out of the way. Is that fair to say?
I was thinking along that same line that
Yes.
we should set that up.
Well, there is no requirement for the public hearing, just like we discussed with the sale of the Upper City Hall. I just recommended it, just small town, goodwill. But there's no reason you couldn't, pass the motion to set that public hearing today. And that way you can process moving forward, and then between now and the public hearing, have those conversations that you need to have, so you have that information available at the public hearing.
How long again does it have to be posted? For
10 days, I believe.
Next meeting is the 11th of October.
11th, yeah.
Yeah, but the paper doesn't come out until,
Thursday.
Thursday. If you got a notice in the paper, although we'll lose on short timeline for paper, but
Do you think you could get a public hearing notice in this week's paper?
No, it's just gone to press.
yeah, so you're not going to get it in until next week,
So then the 25th.
which would be the 25th meeting. But if everything else was basically available and ready to go at that 25th of October meeting and public hearing, everything could be taken care of then, as far as agreements and everything else being executed or approved by the council, and that would get her going in November, for whatever that is worth.
So we can make a motion calling for a public hearing on the 25th of October?
Yeah.
Good?
I'll do that.
Second.
Moved and seconded that we have a public hearing on the 25th of October
Concerning the sale or the
concerning the
transfer.
sale of Senior Citizen Center. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Does that answer, I feel like we're just leaving you hanging a little bit here,
No,
so,
I'm closer to the goal line, so that's good.
okay, all right. Thank you.
Does council want to have a closed meeting to discuss offer or counter offer prior to that public meeting, or public hearing, I mean?
You did, in the case of the upstairs, I think it was more because of I think the terms of that transaction was a little bit more, could be possibly more in-depth discussion as far as the price that you were looking for and stuff like that. In this particular case, if there needs to be a discussion on what you think you want to sell the building for, whether it's $1, whether it's more than that, then you might consider somewhere having that discussion, either publicly or privately.
So the price that we discussed at the previous closed meeting for the sale of upstairs, was that brought up during the discussion at the work session meeting that I wasn't able to attend to?
Yeah, we haggled price, I
You
think.
did?
At the special meeting, you mean?
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, that work session that I was
We did haggle.
not able to be.
Yeah.
I'll call it haggle.
I think what came out of that was the consensus that you weren't going to look at the whole property, it was just going to be the upstairs, and then at what cost.
Yeah.
And the final cost and discussion about that happened at the public meeting, or the work session that Burton was here, yes.
The only reason I brought it up is just because, to make sure that you're prepared to move forward, because it seems like in the interest of facilitating a sale, you want to move it forward as quickly as possible. So having that discussion ahead of time may be beneficial in moving it forward. There's no reason you can't have that discussion at a public meeting either. You just have the opportunity to hold a meeting for that purpose.
If you're all thinking, sell the building for $1, and as long as you know what you're selling, if it's going to be for $1 and there's no other terms to discuss, other than the typical, she's got to have it, she got to be in there in a certain amount of time, 18 months, whatever, to show that she's truly interested in getting the building and using it as opposed to getting it and selling it to somebody else. And then the only other thing in that agreement is some confirmation or language that NSI stays there, as long as they need to stay there.
Right, I think some of that'll be answered after we have a discussion with NSI. Perhaps they'll say, we don't want to be there, next to a different commercial business, we'll find somewhere. Or they might say, what can we do to make this work? And then we'll have to again engage Lana and figure out how and if that is truly something that's doable. Because everybody knows USDA standards are stiff. They might not allow automated machinery in the proximity of a kitchen. Who knows,
Well, my only point was if there's three terms, length of time in which she needs to do something in there, at what cost, and that NSI can stay. If that's the only three things that need to be basically, in that agreement, and that's what you're all thinking now, there probably isn't a reason to set a special meeting or a work session to talk about it. It can be done in an open meeting at that public hearing. If you think there needs to be more, dollar figures and everything else, then that's a different story. It can be discussed in an open meeting too, but not necessary.
Any thoughts?
I don't think we need a closed meeting.
Could it be on the agenda for the 11th? For the 11th, the October 11th meeting, if it was on the agenda for the October 11th meeting, we could discuss it there, have the public hearing on the 25th, and then
Sure.
pull the trigger or put the gun away, one of the two.
That timeline work for you, Lena? Lena, sorry.
Yeah, the planning commission would have to review it in its relationship to the comp plan, which is just to be similar to upstairs and what you've done. I don't see an issue there either, but,
No.
yeah, the planning commission will have to get scheduled in sometime between now and the public hearing, which shouldn't be an issue.
Okay, it seems we've got a plan to go forward with this on that, and we can discuss it at the next meeting, and then 25th we'll have the hearing.
So we'll
We
plan.
should be able to get a report the next meeting, with
NSI, yes,
Yeah.
we'll get a hold of NSI, and then we'll plan for a notice in the press of a public hearing on the 25th.
Okay.
Very good.
Anything else on that? And moving right along. Trail plan, Bob Schliemann.
Bob, the trail guy did it, or the audit guy did it in 8 minutes. I'm just throwing it out there.
I was told 10 before the meeting, so I think I can do it 7.
New bar is 8.
Yes. So yeah, thank you, Mayor, council staff. I'm here tonight to report on the citywide trail plan that we've been working on behalf of the city. This process started back in April. We were authorized to move ahead with the trail plan. In that plan, there was 5 things the city wanted us to address. Number 1, future trails and connections within the city of Pelican Rapids. Number 2 was a boardwalk or river walk along the Pelican River. 3, improve canoe or kayak access to and along the Pelican River within the city of Pelican Rapids. A concept plan for future amenities within a trailhead within the city. And then the last thing was future trails and connections between Pelican Rapids and neighboring communities or destinations. So those were the 5 main things that you wanted us to cover in that plan. The first thing that we did is we formed a committee. We had 5 meetings. The first one was in May, the last one was in September. We had a public open house in September at the Pelican Rapids School. And I just want to mention that there was a grant that was available to complete this. It was offered by Partnership for Health. Patrick Hollister is here this evening. He's going to say a few words in a bit. We have provided that final trail plan to you folks in your packet for review. I'm sure you've all read it and looked through it from start to finish. From here, I can just answer any comments or questions that you may have on the plan, or I can go through it quickly and hit on some of the main topics that were included. Totally up to you. I know we've got a lot going on this evening. If you want to go through it, I can definitely do that. I may need an extension of time though if we go through it.
This question.
Go ahead, Steve.
Bob, I had a question, it's exhibit number 6, and it shows parking area, bike rack, and that's Veterans Park, as I see it.
So, going back to what you're referring to, Steve, is the trailhead. So, yeah.
Is there a page number for that, or?
It's basically, I would say, third to the last one in that document, Don. Yeah, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going, right there.
This looks like it's a vacant area.
So this was an area that's been discussed as far as actually having the trailhead, as my understanding, for quite some time. It's in other documents that have been put together. So just as far as amenities in the actual trailhead area, what we had done there is I'm going to walk over so everybody can hopefully see this. The areas in blue are the parcels that were dedicated. And then we had some just conceptual things, like over here on the west side of the Pelican River, we talked about putting parking and picnic tables, things like that. This was going to remain green space right on the west side of First Street Northwest. And then on the east side, within Veterans Park, there was talk about putting bike racks, a parks or trails map there, a bike repair station, a water station, a charging station for electric bikes, and then also what was discussed is this building which is currently the senior center, is my understanding. There was talk about putting restrooms and things in there and using it as a multi-use facility as part of the trailhead. Obviously, there's been some discussion earlier tonight on possibly doing something with the trailhead in another location. So this document, was put together before a lot of these discussions took place. So whether this is still valid or not is to be determined.
Can I just say that, this still can be a trailhead.
Right.
When you think about what we're trying to do down across the river with the cleanup of that property, there can still be parking down there. There can still be picnic tables down there. There can still be some type of a shelter. If you think about the Hanson Memorial Shelter out at the state park, there could be something to that extent, except smaller, put on the other side of the river. This can still be a trailhead for water activity. People getting on the river, getting off the river. There can still be bike racks and all that stuff there, but when it comes to the actual, what you consider the Pelican Rapids to Maplewood Trail, the parking and all that stuff and a lot of those amenities and the restrooms specifically could still be down where what the school just talked about with the co-op and with the city down there. There could be some restrooms down here, but it doesn't need to be in the senior center.
I still think it's a valuable location for a trailhead without the senior center, simply for the reasons Don stated. Access to and from the river is very convenient there already.
So with those comments and what's been said, do you want me to kind of just, even if I just go over the exhibits and hit on some of the exhibits, which basically tell the story of the information that we came up with? Or are you folks as the council and staff comfortable with what you've got and reviewed?
I did look at it, pretty in depth, but whatever they would like.
It doesn't matter.
I learned a lot at the high school.
Yep. So basically what's in here was there were a few changes from what I presented there, but other than that, what I presented at the high school was very, very similar to what's in this document, this final document, so.
I think we're good then.
Mr. Mayor? Can I ask your permission to have Mr. Sleeman communicate with the county and the school so that we kind of are all on the same page and not competing? I think, to Mr. Markcraft's point, I think we can do both, right? We got lots of parking at the school, and we can have a sub-trailhead in one end or the other, and all those kinds of things. But I think it would be good if you would authorize that he speak with us and our consultants and those, and with Brian and the school, and we can all kind of get in the same room together. But it's your dollar's paying him, so I'm putting out an ask for it.
And just to clarify, I in no way intend it to be in any kind of competition with the, let's call it Central Trailhead, at all.
I didn't take it that way. You and I are actually seeing this the same way. I think that'd be a beautiful spot for a smaller little spot for the water, for the accesses, for all those kinds of things. But I think it would be good if we coordinate.
Sure.
And I will say this, some of this stuff was actually discussed at our last trail committee meeting in September. And I heard nothing but positive feedback on what was being discussed up by the Chauncey Martin Field. And I think everybody is on the same page. I think everybody's thinking that this would be a good secondary spot, I guess, Wayne, for lack of a better term. So with that being said, I want to say a few thank yous here quickly. I want to thank all the committee members. I know people's time is valuable. I want to thank them for taking the time to come out and be part of that process. Thank you to city staff, City Hall for letting us have the meetings here. We use your technology, which is very helpful. Thank you to the Pelican Rapids School for allowing us to have a public hearing at their facilities. That is a great facility to have and venue to have a public hearing like that, an open house. And then thank you, Patrick, and Partnership for Health for the grant. So with that, I know there's an agreement between Partnership for Health and the city. I believe we've met all of the requirements. I've sent you the final document. So as far as I'm concerned, I think we're good to go. So this document now belongs to the city and Partnership for Health, is my understanding. So with that, if there's no other questions for me, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Patrick Hollister.
Good evening, Your Honor, members of the council. First of all, I want to congratulate Bob and Apex on an excellent job with the trail plan. It was our privilege and honor to be able to fund that plan. And Bob and the entire committee did a great job. So we're very happy with the end product. We understand that the bulk of that document was written before the discussions about Chauncey Martin Field, and that's fine. I mean, this document, time moves on, decisions move on, and some of the things that we've outlined in that document might someday manifest in a different way than we anticipated, and we're perfectly happy with that. The document serves the city, not the other way around. So if you end up going in slightly different directions than what we identified, we're still very happy with the process and with the city. So I want to talk to you about a couple grant opportunities, and they do tie in to some degree with the trail plan. So there are two grants coming up that I want you to know about. One is a transportation alternatives grant, and the other one is an active transportation grant. The transportation alternatives grant is a federal grant, although that money is allocated through each state's Department of Transportation. You already have a transportation alternatives grant because a while back you applied for and received a grant to help pay for the various trail improvements as part of the 2024-2025 reconstruction of 59 and 108. Because that is a federal grant, it takes 4 years to get your money from when you're awarded the grant. So you guys were awarded that grant in April of 2020, and you're getting that money in 2024 to help pay for the trail segments. The other important thing to note with the Transportation Alternatives Grant is that there is a 20% local match required. So you do have an obligation for a 20% local match as part of that 2024-2025 project. The second grant is the new Minnesota state level active transportation grant, which is it is Minnesota's new sort of state version, its own state version of the federal transportation alternatives grant. The active transportation grant, this is its inaugural year, is used for very similar purposes as the transportation alternatives grant. So a lot of communities are looking to apply for this grant, for example, for bike trails or multi-use paths. There are two important differences, though, between the new state active transportation grant and the federal transportation alternatives grant. The first one is, because this is state money in the case of the active transportation grant, you don't have to wait 4 years to get your money. You get your money almost immediately. Upon being officially awarded the money. The second major difference is with the state active transportation grant, there is no local match required. It's 100% free and clear, money from the state, no local match required. Now, I have three proposed purposes why you might want to apply for one or both of those grants. The first purpose, potential purpose for one or both of these grants is, I know that ever since the city was awarded the Transportation Alternatives Grant for the 59 and 108 project back in 2020, the city has been in search for other sources of funding to help the city meet its 20% local match obligation. Over the last, I would say, couple of years, I've received an occasional email from Bob saying we're looking for other potential sources that could help the city meet its 20% match. I have not kept myself up to date on the city's efforts in that regard, so I don't know if you've been successful or not in finding any other sources. I certainly wish you the best in that regard. So I've got good news, which is that both of these grants, the Federal Transportation Alternatives Grant and the State Active Transportation Grant, could be used by the city of Pelican Rapids if you apply and are awarded one of those grants to help meet your pre-existing 20% local match obligation. So this is a way to get an external source to help pay for the 20% obligation that you already have for that 2024-2025 project. So that is one potential use for applying for either one of these grants or both. Second potential use for one of these grants, for either of these grants, is Bob did not end up going through the trail plan page by page, but in your trail plan document, one of the suggested improvements in that document is either a multi-use path or a bike trail or a sidewalk on the west side of Highway 59 from 5th Street South to 10th Street South. And the reason that's in there is because while MnDOT's 2024-2025 project is adding a lot of trail segments to both segments of 108 and 59, it stops at 5th Street South because that is the geographic southern limit of the project. And obviously, we're blessed with Tom's presence this evening, so he's welcome to clarify anything or add more detail if he wants to. So the MnDOT's project in 2024 and 2025 stops, both in terms of the road reconstruction and in terms of the trail, at 5th Street South. Now, there is a retail facility at 10th Street South, and forgive me, store owners, I can't remember if it's Dollar Tree or Family Dollar or what it is, but there's some kind of a dollar store down there, maybe Dollar General, at 10th Street South. The project currently ends at 5th Street South. It would be, in my opinion, it would be really nice to have those 5 blocks added to the trail system, have a segment there. And in terms of timing, MnDOT is going to be resurfacing Highway 59 from 5th Street South all the way down to I-94 through Elizabeth, through Earhart in 2027. And because with the Transportation Alternatives Grant, it takes you 4 years to get your money. If the city applied for the Transportation Alternatives Grant for a trail segment between 5th Street South and 10th Street South in January of 2023, because the application is going to be due in January, and if you were awarded the money, you would find that out in April of 2023. It takes 4 years to get the money. Voila, you would get the money in 2027, just in time for MnDOT's resurfacing project. MnDOT could do the work for you. Of course, you'd have to pay for it out of your grant, but there would be significant cost savings since MnDOT would already be in the neighborhood with their people and with their equipment. Now, there is a third possible use for either of these grants, which was actually suggested to me this morning by phone by Nick Leonard at Otter Tail County, and I think this is also a very intriguing idea. The trail that currently exists on the east side of Highway 59, between 9th and 11th South, as you know, that trail is actually a yellow stripe on the frontage road. And in fact, at the moment, that yellow stripe isn't even there because it's faded. Okay, right there. So another possible use for either one of these grants would be to upgrade that trail segment from merely a yellow line on the frontage road to an actually physically separated trail, like the trail in other segments of town, especially after 2025. You could move those 2 blocks of the trail off of that frontage road and have it be a separated trail, which would be a significant improvement in safety, an upgrade to the facility, an improvement in a lot of different ways. So all 3 of those purposes that I outlined, helping the city meet its existing 20% obligation for the 2024-2025 project, the trail from 5th Street South to 10th Street South on the west side of 59, or upgrading that 2-block segment along the frontage road to a true separated physical trail. All 3 of those would be eligible uses for either of the 2 grants. You could, in fact, apply for a combination of those things with either grant. You can mix and match any way you want. Given the timing factor with those two grants, here's what I would suggest you do, is with regard to helping the city meet its existing 20% obligation for the 2024-2025 project, I would suggest that you ask Bob to research the active transportation grant, the state active transportation grant, between now and your October 11th meeting, and see what potential is there to apply for that grant for the purpose of helping you meet your 20% requirement. There is a letter of intent due with both of these grants. In the case of the state active transportation grant, the letter of intent is due Friday, October 14th. So you've got one more council meeting before that letter of intent is due. And when I say letter of intent, it's really an online form that you have to fill out and hit the send button. But you could, and I actually suggest that you do, request that Bob research the state active transportation grant for the purpose of helping the city meet its 20% obligation for the 2024-2025 project between now and October 11th. Have Bob report to you on October 11th whether he thinks there's real potential there for that grant to help you, and if Bob thinks that that grant has potential, then at the October 11th meeting, you would instruct Bob or authorize Bob to apply for that, well, to submit the letter of intent to apply for that grant. And then the actual full application is due later, I think in December. With respect to either of those trail segments that I described, or both, that's where I think at this point, given the timing of MnDOT's project in 2027, that's where I think the Transportation Alternatives Grant potentially comes in. And at this point, the only thing that I would recommend you do with respect to the Transportation Alternatives Grant is locally that federal transportation alternatives grant is administered and awarded by West Central Initiative in Fergus Falls in conjunction with MnDOT District 4 and Detroit Lakes. West Central Initiative and MnDOT District 4, namely Wayne Hurley and Mary Safran, have scheduled their annual information meeting about that Transportation Alternatives Grant for Wednesday, October 5th at 1 p.m. It's going to be an online-only meeting, a virtual meeting. It's going to be Zoom or Microsoft Teams or something like that. And I would suggest that you ask Bob, I'm giving you a lot of work, Bob. Okay. I would suggest that you ask Bob to attend that meeting. Don might also be interested in attending that meeting virtually, Wednesday, October 5th, 1 p.m., to learn more about the Transportation Alternatives Grant. And then, I don't have the dates in front of me, but typically for the Federal Transportation Alternatives Grant, a letter of intent is usually due sometime in late October, early November, and the full application would be due in January. This is the same process you went through in 2020. And then you would find out whether or not you got the Transportation Alternatives Grant if you apply for it in April 2023, and then you would get your money in April 2027. So in summary, my recommendation to you this evening is, number one, have Bob look at the active transportation grant between now and October 11th and see if there's a potential there to help the city meet its 20% obligation for 2024-2025 project. And number two, have Bob and or Don participate in the Wednesday, October 5th, 1 p.m. Transportation Alternatives Information Meeting and see if, and then you will have at least 2 more meetings to discuss, and I'm happy to be here if you want me here, to discuss whether or not you would be interested in applying for that Transportation Alternatives Grant for one or both of those trail segments on the west side and the east side. And you could apply for both simultaneously. Neither the Transportation Alternatives rules nor the Active Transportation Grant rules require that your proposal be all geographically contiguous. It doesn't all have to be connected. It can be different parts in different places. So those would be my 2 suggestions for you this evening. That's it, unless you've got any questions.
Okay. Don?
I've reviewed them, and yeah, Patrick, thanks for sending this over to us, but I did get the same information prior to that. Patrick obviously gave you a lot more information than I probably would have tonight. But the one thing I will say is, I agree with everything he said, and all the things that we should have Bob working on. The only thing I can't agree with is October 5th, because I won't be here. But I think Bob should do those things. I think we need to apply for the AT grant to try and offset some of our costs in 2024. We do need to apply for a TA grant, because in 2027, there is another great opportunity, as long as that also, them projects or what we want to do in 2027 lines up with what MnDOT has planned and working with us and partnering with us again. So everything he said is spot on, and I think we need to do that. I think you need to give Bob the direction to do that. Especially for the letter of intents. It's not hardly any work, so.
I guess I'd make a motion to let Bob go down this path if he's willing.
Yeah, definitely.
Excuse the pun.
Yeah.
Trail, not the path.
All right, sorry. Totally dropped that ball. Go down this trail.
Did you second it?
Strike that, Danielle. Just kidding.
I didn't, but I will. Yeah.
I second.
Okay.
Okay.
Motion is to,
Have Bob go forward in at least signing the letter, or doing the letter of intent, and then going to the online training for the grant informational meeting, and I guess reporting back to us with his findings.
further discussion.
And bring donuts next time.
That's official.
Okay, we got a motion on the floor. Any other discussion on it? Then we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Patrick.
Thank you, Patrick.
Next thing on the agenda, Houston Engineering. They've got a dam update with some changes to the plan, and I'll let them explain that.
Sure. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. Thank you again for having me this evening. Here today, my name is Wes Keller. I'm with Houston Engineering. I've been involved with the development and plan of the dam removal, the rock fishway, and the pedestrian bridge located at the existing dam site. I'm also joined by Amanda Hillman with Minnesota DNR. She has been a lead on this project from the get-go. The intent tonight was just to provide you with an update of the overall project status, kind of go over some of the recent changes we've had, and discuss the next steps forward and kind of a schedule going forward here. So I have some slides put together here. I kind of wanted to start out by just going through some of the project objectives that were implemented from the beginning of this project. You can go ahead. So obviously, the removal of the dam infrastructure is one of the key goals of this project. With that, we'll improve safety and recreation at the dam site, eliminate, maintenance to the aging dam infrastructure, and from an aquatic standpoint, restore river connectivity, recreate the historic river channel within the upstream reservoir bed, and allow for fish passage and spawning, and enhance recreational use throughout the channel going through downtown there. So as you can see on the bottom here, this was a rendering that was done pretty early on, stages, concept level of the, what the site would look like once the dam was removed, with the pedestrian bridge spanning over that and the relocation of Pelican Peak. And to this day, that still is a fairly accurate depiction of what's in our plans. So I wanted to put that in there just to give you guys a visual kind of the plan forward here. So, go ahead, Don. So moving on, I just, for anybody not familiar with the project, kind of wanted just to highlight some of the key features of the project. On the next slide here, you'll see.
It's messing with me.
So one of the major components of this is obviously removing the dam infrastructure. A lot of things going on in a small area. It's kind of tough to see on the screen here, but basically the entire infrastructure of the dam is planned to be removed, including the trail going over the dam right now, obviously the existing concrete spillway, the upstream retaining walls, the timber deck that is on the southeast corner, and then also, the stairway right now that's going down to the kind of down to the pump house there. Also the pump house and the conduits running through the dam embankment, where we're seeing a lot of those issues right now with scour going through there. And also the removal of the base of Pelican Peak and the relocation of Pelican Peak. So that kind of sums up the removal plan within the area there. And moving on to the next slide here. As many of you are aware, we are under contract right now. We just secured contract with a contractor to do the relocation of Pelican Peak as a separate contract. The thought there was to get Pelican Peak removed before any of the dam removal was done, get him in a safe location to be stored until he was ready to be put back on a permanent new foundation. Another key component on the next slide here, you'll see obviously would be the addition of the rock rapids through the existing dam embankment that you see today. So, on the top there, you can see a plan view of kind of the limits of the rapids. And I'll talk, this is one of the areas that did get adjusted in our recent changes here, so I'll kind of talk through those, but just wanted to give you an overview of the limits of that. You can see on the bottom there, that's just a profile view, basically following the center line alignment of the rapids and basically the grade as you come down from the existing, or from the weir of the rapids down to the end of the rapids there. Go ahead, on the next slide, this just showing a section view of those rapids. Right now we're at approximately a 94-foot wide section. That is something I'll touch on here as we go forward. That was one of the changes. And on the bottom you'll see just a plan view upstream to your right, beginning of the rapids, and you will see, you'll notice the kind of the wavy line there down the middle. That's depicting the low flow, kind of the sinuous path that's going through each of the rock rapids. The intent here was to, within each kind of rock check, as you see going down there, to alternate kind of that low flow location of the rapids to give that meandering low flow channel there. And on the next slide, another highlight of the project was we will be dredging 2 locations from the upstream mill pond area that have seen a lot of sediment build up throughout the years. The first one on the left there is more to the northeast portion of the existing mill pond area. On the bottom there, that would be just upstream of our rapids limits. And the colors there and the contours are just depicting basically the depth of excavation required. So these dredged areas, when finished, the plan is to, we're anticipating approximately 4 to 5 feet of water in these pool areas on normal flow conditions. Moving on to the next highlight of the project would be the pedestrian bridge crossing over the rapids. Right now, we're at a 120-foot long, see the typo there, 124-foot long and 10-foot wide pedestrian truss bridge. The truss bridge will be prefabricated, delivered on site with the concrete abutment foundations poured on site, obviously before the bridge is set. Then you can see there in the elevation, the bottom elevation view, the rapid section going through that. Moving on to the next highlight here is along with the pedestrian bridge, there is approach trail portion of this. You can see the alignments where we're kind of tying in on the south end is to your right there, tying in kind of where the existing trails kind of meet on the north end. There's also trail access planned to the new Pelican Peak location where Don has the cursor there, as well as access to a relocated dock location to the upstream pool. So all of these trails, everything will be ADA accessible. That was one of the key components to the design. And as you can see there, if I just kind of point out the existing dam embankment, is kind of, if you can see that dashed line there, that's roughly how much we're going to be cutting down the profile of the path going to the bridge. So it's roughly about 4 feet, if you're looking at the top of the dam embankment right now. So moving on to the next highlight, this is just showing that approach trail down to the relocated Pelican Peak location, which is approximately kind of where the pump house is right now. He will be up at a higher elevation out of the rapids and on a similar concrete foundation to what you're seeing today. So with that, I think that wraps up kind of the gist of the project. Next slide would be, and this is just showing kind of that plan for that concrete foundation. You'll see here, this is kind of just showing the approximate grade line. The rapids would be kind of right where the cursor is there. So you have roughly about a 4-foot exposed wall above the edge of the rapids, where you'll be able to look over the ornamental railing there and observe the rapids from the Pelican Peak location. So moving on to the next. So some of the adjustments we've recently made, kind of at our 90% level here. One of the main things, actually Don, I'll go to the next one, might be easier. One of the main things was adjusting the rapids section width. Originally, you can see on the left there, we had a steeper sloped section, narrower width of approximately 63 feet. We adjusted that to get a flatter channel section, wider, and also the addition of 5-foot benches on each end, which are placed just above kind of the normal flow condition. The thought there is to provide easier access to the rapids for recreational use or whatever it may be. This wider section will also provide a wider flow area, which will in turn provide lower velocities going down the rapids. Be a safer area for any kayakers, any sort of recreation in the rapids. So, and also, this will improve the fish passage characteristics of the rapids. So, backing up one, that width adjustment, we did have to make some changes with the actual footprint and location, start location of the rapids. As you can see on the left, we were farther west with the end of the rapids, just based on the tight proximity of the existing buildings there and the 59 bridge. We did have to move everything back. I feel this does have its advantages. As you can see, that's going to move the pool and everything upstream further east. This is gonna create, increased green spaces. These areas here we're not showing at this moment, but these areas on the corners here will be basically flat graded areas that are gonna be, provide a lot of green space. It'll also move the upstream reservoir pool further upstream to, which will provide, more flow area underneath the existing Mill Pond Bridge. And moving that up also increased our kind of normal pool elevation by roughly half a foot. So this also did in turn increase our bridge length by 20 feet. And it did shift our alignment and trail, kind of our approach trail alignments a little bit. But so, and the other adjustment, moving on to 2 slides from here, would be we did have to adjust that upstream dredged area as well. We wanted to keep the same pool area and excavation quantity as far as what amount of material would be dredged out of there. This did, as you'll notice, it widened out the pool, which is a benefit, and it shifted that pool closer to the existing opening of the upstream bridge. So you won't, in turn to our previous design, you'll see more flow area going underneath that existing bridge. So moving on from that, kind of just going through a tentative schedule. Right now we're in final plan stages. The target would be to and this is, I guess the schedule is based on we would like to get the work done within the channel this winter. Lower flow conditions as well as road conditions that will be after freeze up a lot. Get a lot of the heavy hauling done within that time. So to meet that, we'd like to advertise for bids coming up here in mid-October. That would be an advertisement period of roughly 3 weeks. We would then be opening bids early November and awarding mid-November, and with the hopes of beginning construction end of November to beginning of December. So with that in mind, that kind of carries down to kind of a construction timeline here. The Pelican Pete relocation is underway now with a target end of October. And then if you kind of look at, we kind of split up all the work that would be done, the heavy hauling, the work that would be done within the channel, kind of in those winter months with an end target date of having the rapids in by mid-February. And kind of that leaves a little bit of leeway there. The main goal would be to have that done before spring runoff and have those rapids in place. So and then we're anticipating some downtime in the winter with the remaining structural work for the bridge, the abutments, the Pelican Pete foundation, all that being done in early spring, and targeting a tentative completion date. Right here we're running down into mid-July and targeting a substantial completion mid-August. So, and finally, last thing would be just kind of looking at where we're at with costs on the next slide here. So we're at 90% level. We're fairly, confident with the level of cost we're at right now at 90%. We did still add a 10% contingency to these ranges, just based on the bidding environment today. We're seeing a lot of material shortages, labor shortages, high lead times. It's a very volatile bidding market to predict bidding right now. So I kind of split it up. So we have the DNR, basically the dam removal, the rock rapids, the dredging, Pelican Peak relocation. And then, as you're aware, the city has secured the outdoor recreation grant, which is requires a 50% cost share for the bridge. That is up to a total of $520,000. So to make it a little simple here, we got the $260,000 shown for that grant, and the rest of the bridge costs are carried over here to the city roads. One thing I didn't touch on is the existing dam embankment does have storm sewer outletting into the downstream of just the pump station. So that will require some additional work there. The caveat to that is that also ties into the 108 and 59 project. So we have been working with Tom, coordinating on that design on their end to make sure, whatever is done within the rapids portion accommodates that design. So that's kind of a cost breakdown at the 90% level. And with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Council?
So, excuse me, with widening basically the rapids part, obviously that slows down the flow, but doesn't that also affect the depth of the water coming through there? I mean, will it?
So the weir elevation stayed the same. So the basically how the rapids section is flatter. As you can see here, that the 5-foot bench, that's where the beginning of that is the plan of kind of the anticipated normal flow depth. So that's roughly 2 feet within the rapids section. And the thought is to, flattening that out, lowers the velocities, provides a better environment for fish passage and for recreational use there.
The one thing that I really liked in the spreading of this and making it wider is, I think, from a aesthetics viewpoint, or from somebody coming into Pelican Rapids and looking and watching the rapids come through and seeing it, I think that width adds to that appeal. But I also like the fact that it creates a little bit milder environment coming through the rapids. So your less experienced kayakers, maybe the young kids that want to go through there are gonna feel a little bit comfortable going through this, because it's going to be a little bit milder, but it's going to be still, I think, attractive for people to kayak and stuff through. So, from my standpoint, I think the changes were a plus. The only negative to it, which I pointed out to them guys too, is it adds 20 feet to our bridge, which we're on the hook for. So, but I still think in the grand scheme of things, it's better this way than it was before.
And I will just add the 5-foot benches on each side. If you do have a kayaker in there and they get in trouble, it provides a safe, way to get out, a safe kind of exit from the rapids. So from that standpoint, it's a plus as well. And then if you go onto the bridge section, I'll just point out.
Am I going the right way or the wrong way?
Right there. So right here, you can kind of see that bench. The bridge is positioned to where you will have enough headroom to pass under it on lower flow conditions, obviously. So for portaging kayaks, if somebody wants to get out and get to the bottom of the rapids, they can use the 5-foot bench through the bridge section as well.
Steve?
Listen,
We're gonna see something happen in November then, possibly, right? Could you just visually, what will people see then? Trucks will come in, there'll be
So the first,
backhoes?
Mobilizing, kind of the first, what we would anticipate would be kind of dewatering of the dam area. Depending on the water levels, the first thing they would have to do is whether it's put a levee out in front of the existing dam, or if they're gonna use sheet pile, cofferdam, whatever area they wanna remove first. A big portion and cost to that removal is gonna be that water control. And, every contractor might have a different process for that, but that's likely gonna be the first step, is water control, dewatering, whatever areas they wanna remove the dam infrastructure first, and kind of channeling where that flow bypasses. It's likely going to be a multi-stage removal, as you won't be able to, unless flows dry up, but they're going to have to bypass that flow at some point. So.
But I think the very first thing they're going to see is peat get moved out.
Right.
Yeah, I got that, yeah. All right, thanks.
And we had already drawn down all of that, and it had dried for a year plus. So then we had an issue where we had to not, fill it back up again, basically. Does that screw up the timeline at all, or?
I guess the problems we just had so much water this spring. I don't think the plan, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the plan was not to this spring dam it back up. That was just the circumstance of how much rain we got this spring and the melt. With that created problems with, that flow going through that bypass channel and creating a lot of scour issues. And at that point, we put the stop logs in that box conduit to channel that flow back to the main spillway to keep, to minimize the scour effects at that pump house. So that's kind of where things are at right now. We're trying to minimize the damage to, the scouring around that pump house. So.
The only thing now is we're going to have to wait for it to dewater before the trucks can get in there, whereas before that was the idea, was to get ahead of that. But we have to wait for the roads to freeze anyway, so I think they're going to start on the rapids, dewater, and then do the dredging.
Don?
I just have a comment about the tentative schedule. The award bid would typically happen at a council meeting on the 15th, but or it would happen on a council meeting. But I know in November, because of elections, we moved that council date to the 15th. That's why the schedule reflects that? Okay, good. Just wanted to make sure.
That open bid date is tentative on, I know elections are the 8th, right? So we would just want to provide enough window there between open and award to review. So.
Yep, that's good.
The only other thing I wanted to add was, obviously our costs have gone up by almost $1 million. So right now we're in the process of getting amendments to get that money. And then once that is approved, then I will be sending an amendment to you guys to sign that, to add to our.
And any more you'd like to find is perfectly okay with us.
You guys aren't the only ones. Every project I'm working on is 25% over what we expected.
Yeah.
So we're at $1 million, like,
Well, it's probably closer to like 800.
okay, but so what are the big parts of that?
So I think when we originally submitted the grant, we didn't have any of the dredging in there. And then just the costs of
Yeah.
I think bridge pilings might have been something too, kind of planned that in on your section, didn't we?
What?
Where our pedestrian bridge would be going across? Didn't we plan those abutments?
Yeah, I think if we were gonna have to stabilize there, yeah.
I figured that would drive it up.
Yeah, and also the Pelican Peak, relocation. There's been a lot more effort than anticipated with that too. So.
I mean, if you look at 25% of a $2 million project, that's $500,000 right there, and just everything across the board.
I have a question. In the dredging section in the mill pond, you said it was dredging out 4 to 5 feet?
When it is done, the anticipated normal pool depth will be around 4 feet.
Okay, so there's not any plan for any kind of swimming beach or anything else in that area?
Right now, the plan is to seed basically all the areas around the shore that would be uncovered by the natural channel.
Okay. I mean, because historically, for Pelican, having some kind of a water beach was a huge thing. And I guess I feel bad that it's gone away. And right now, we don't have a functional alternative with a aged pool, non-starter on the new pool, and no other lake access anywhere else. So I feel like I guess in the big picture of Pelican, it may not be good. Just throwing that out there. I mean, I guess I should have been up on this months, maybe years ago, to throw this out there. But I mean, it seemed to me that, I don't know, if you're going to dredge to 8 or 10 people, kids can swim.
I think that, that's something that we didn't get as a goal of the project, so it's not something that
And I think that's partly because we have a swimming pool, and there still is a drive and a goal and a vision for the city to replace that pool. If we're going to put a swimming beach in, there's no reason to spend money on a pool, but I think the pool was something that we're still working for.
Can I ask a question? So this extra money we're over, where's that going to come from?
Is that the DNR extra fund?
Well, this $1 million overrun that we're seeing right now, where is that money?
So we're prioritizing our LaSalle Sands funding and trying to do amendments to make sure that we cover that. The DNR is committed to getting this done.
Okay, so nothing on Pelican?
Not for the dam removal.
And anything else?
Well, for Pelican Rapids, the only cost for Pelican Rapids is involved in the bridge. And obviously, if they're widening that rapids area out, that's where it goes from a 100-foot bridge to a 120-foot bridge. There is an added cost to Pelican Rapids because we are needing a longer bridge now. That's the downside of the changes that were made. Right. But the plus side of the changes that were made of the effect of the milding of the rapids for recreational activity.
It's required, because we're not going to do the project if we don't get fish passes.
Right.
Really, basically, to keep it where it was, we were going to have a narrow channel that was too fast, and so we're not fulfilling the requirements of our funding. So virtually, it's necessary to do what we did.
So the city will have to come up with, we gather instead of 260, and maybe as high for the bridge part of it, about $300,000, another 40 grand. Where does it come from? Probably the same place the money came from to pay for the bridge in the first place. We take more from the liquor store. And there is money there to do that. We only ask the council to consider 260 because that's all that was needed for the bridge at that time. If we have to add 40,000 more or up to 40,000 more, that would be my recommendation.
And we're showing an increase here. We're trying to be conservative with our unit prices and trying to be on the conservative side of where we're thinking bids are going to come in. I think this is going to be a very attractive project to a lot of contractors and attract some competitive bidding. So especially timing wise, bidding a bigger project like this kind of in the fall when a lot of contractors are getting to finishing projects, having more downtime, having trying to keep their employees active. I think are all things that will bode well to the bid results for this. So,
do we have to decide anything tonight?
Nope, we just wanted to provide an update.
And did you get your questions answered there?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
It's not here.
Any other questions from the council? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Tom Pace.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. It's been a while since I've been down here, so it's fun to come down here again. I guess since we're talking about money, I'll give you a quick update on our fund job in 24-25. As expected, you know, our costs have gone up as well. Right now, our plan is about 45% complete, so we have a pretty good high-level estimate. It's down to about $23.5 million project currently based on bid prices and inflation. Of that 23.5, MnDOT's about 13.5, and the city's about $10 million is the estimated cost currently. That probably will go up as we get deeper into design, just to let you know that is coming out there. Since I've been here last, we've been, you know, we're deep into the details of design. It's going fast. You know, basically, in 8 months now, the plan is done. Everything is completed. The plan is sent on to the central office for bidding, or letting probably a year from now. It's over a year from now, and it's building in 24. So the time is moving pretty quickly. So I just want to give you kind of an update on where things are. I don't want to babble on too long, but like I mentioned, the plans are about 45% complete. I've been down here lately with our right-of-way folks, talking to business owners and residents about some issues with right-of-way encroachments and right-of-way relocations, things like that we're working through in our plan design. But we've talked a lot, Don and Mayor Brent, have been most of our meetings, some of our public management team meetings, so they're pretty much well in tune with two things. But something that this city council has to probably decide on. One, as part of our job, you know, we stop at our right-of-way line for all of our sidewalk work, our trail work. So going through downtown Pelican Rapids, there are a lot of businesses that have doorways and stoops that are beyond our right-of-way line. And so there's an option there if the city wants to make the doorways and stoops ADA compliant. Now's a good time to do that. MnDOT will not pay for that. That'd be a city cost. If you want to make the doorways beyond the right-of-way ADA compliant. And basically, quite a few of them now are steep, or they have steps, that sort of thing. So we're coming through in 24. It'd be a great time to, you know, in my opinion, make those all ADA compliant. If you don't, that's fine, you know, but you know, you can walk around and talk to quite a business owner recently, you know, about that option if they have who's paying for it. And I say, well, it's not MnDOT to be the city, and then, you know, they're concerned about those costs going back to them. But that's, you know, beyond my realm as a MnDOT employee. Go ahead, Don.
I was wondering, how many businesses have entrances or stoops that are affected by it?
There's a fair amount. You know, the whole corridor through downtown, the one way going west, there's steps, and there's probably more than things where there's, you know, there. So.
And from talking with them, did you get a feeling that pretty much everybody was interested in the idea of doing the work? Was there any that said flat out, we don't care who's paying for it, we're not going to do it?
If they're not paying for it, then they'll do the work.
Do it.
Yeah, if they're paying for it, they'll send it.
And
it's pretty normal. It really is. It's pretty common, so it's not surprising.
But it's also a situation, if I remember early on, there's not an issue with leaving those outside of the right-of-way non-ADA compliant.
That's correct.
Okay.
If that's the case, MnDOT would still go for it. We still would do work in there just to match in for a new sidewalk, but it would not be ADA compliant. It'd be some work in there that we would still do.
And is there a, without, I don't have the cost estimates here, obviously, but do you have an idea of what the cost to do them stoops are?
For the whole project?
Right, well, yeah.
I'd say probably 25 grand. It's good. It takes work and time, and maybe more, depending on this, you know, for adding steps or stairways, that sort of thing. I'd say 25 to 50 grand.
So I think the main thing was, would the city pick up that to get them all done? Or if they're not required, don't do them, or do them and assess them to the properties?
Well, so that's my question. I mean, if my shoelace store is not ADA compliant, isn't it on me to make that stoop compliant rather than the city?
If there was ever a time in the future that they were gonna do something that would, like they had to replace it because it was all cracked up or something like that, then I think, my guess is that they would have to, if they have to replace it for whatever reason, in the future, it's gotta have to be ADA compliant. So I think doing it now, well, yes, and it would be their responsibility to do it at that time. So to do it during the project, I would think that they're gonna probably get it done at a much less cost than if they did it on their own individually at another time. So the question basically would be really, yes, they would have to pay for it on their own in the future. Well, I don't know why they would expect that the city would take care of it for them now. That's why I said if the city, because obviously the city would have to pay for it as part of the project. But for those building owners that do still want to have it done during the project and the city pay for it and then assess those property owners for the work that was done in their locations, that's still an option for those that would still want to do it. But it's whether the city would pay for it or assess it, or just forget it, let them pay for it and worry about it in the future if they ever have to deal with it.
I'd say let them worry about it whenever, simply because in today's financial pulse, who wants to force more tax burden on business owners downtown?
Well, yeah, and I mean, if there's not knowing which businesses were contacted, if there are two competing businesses, and I get it, it's all spread over everybody, well, now I'm paying for my competitor to have his building updated.
And there's also the part of it in this project too, where I guess the service lines and that stuff going to the properties. I can't quite remember what the discussion's been on that. If there's service line replacements.
I think we were gonna go about it about the same way as we did with the last project, leave it up to homeowners if they wanted to come into the home, or the business owners.
Yeah.
If they wanted the new water line brought all the way in or just up to the curb stop.
Yeah, so they're gonna have some cost eventually anyway when it comes to the service lines going into their buildings when we replace all that infrastructure underneath the road.
Yeah, I guess, I didn't need to know now, put the ADA compliant doorway, because our design started there. Because we started at the building where it's going for the center of the road, so if we're making those ADA compliant, I need to know those like now. Otherwise, we're not gonna do it, so.
I wouldn't think the city should be on the hook for the businesses being in compliance, but that's just me.
Makes sense.
I mean, most aren't too bad, they're pretty close. I mean, they're not super steep, they'll be fine. It'd be better if they were all ADA compliant, obviously, if you're in a wheelchair, it's pretty nice.
But doesn't that go back on the business owner?
It's up to you.
I don't understand why it would be an option. It's private property.
Kind of liability.
I mean, that doesn't kind of have with business or private property do with the city. The city has to go after the private property owners after the fact, so. Other cities have done that, where they've assessed the business owners after the fact, so.
It'd be interesting to find out if they would be okay. City will pay for it now.
Well, we will assess
But-
the tax. It'd be nice to be able to talk to those individual businesses and give them even an option, Would you prefer ADA compliant doorways if assessed to your taxes and not a chunk out of your bank account today? City will pay, put it in, but assess your taxes for the bill. That might make people say, well, okay, I'll do that then. But for us to just say, let's do that, period, I don't think this is right for us to do that, especially this time.
Is there any chance at a small cities block grant for all the businesses and the homeowners to defy or defer some of the cost during this whole process? Because we're looking at a a substantial amount of businesses that will be affected.
Yeah, that's a good point. Part of our discussion with HRA a while back, when we were looking at having them do another block grant for the commercial corridor again, and they had kind of reached out and did a little bit of surveying, which is part of what they need to do to determine whether there's enough interest to apply for one. And at that point, there wasn't enough interest, and so we didn't go forward with it, with the idea that with the 2024 project coming and this ADA entrances and stoops coming into play, if there was, and again, you don't know if you're going to get that grant, but there would be the possibility that we could get a grant, a block grant that would pay for approximately about a third of that. But the other part of that is the block grant could be used for that, but the businesses that applied for it could use it for whatever else, doors, windows, heaters, roofs, whatever. But that would be one thing that they could use to help offset that cost. But the timing of getting the block grant and everything, you need to know ahead of time, again. It'd be back to the city would basically take care of it, but you're going to have to be assessed for it. And then you can cover part of that assessment through a block grant. All has to kind of be, kind of line up. And I've been meaning to get a hold of HRA and talk to them about that, because we had talked about it months and months ago, waiting for, kind of to get to this point. But I think ultimately, kind of what we're hearing is, we can do it, but it's going to be, the cost is going to be placed back on the businesses if you guys want to do it. Have you still got more to talk to, or are you done?
We've talked to quite a few of them, right? Not all of them, yeah, we've quite a few of them.
I guess.
And to a T, they've all said, no, if they're paying for it, that they don't want to make the changes, so. Which is, like I say,
Have you brought up the idea to them that if the city were to do it and then assess their taxes for it, what the reaction is negative or positive?
Well, that's not my role.
Okay, all right.
That's the city thing.
All right.
But I think that's something that they should be approached about. Because it is a lot easier pill to swallow, being assessed on your taxes, rather than writing the check for the whole $25,000 or whatever it is.
Are you talking 25,000 per business?
No, the total entire.
The total bill?
Yeah.
A couple, probably,
I think you got
$300-400.
Most are probably a couple grand each.
Maybe I'm not an attorney, but being an ex-property owner downtown, talk to the people and tell them what they're looking at. And, I'm renting a building right on Main Street right now, and never even heard of it. I don't even know if it's ADA compliant or not. I mean, from our chair, we don't even know what we're talking about.
Tom, you have a list of the businesses?
Not on me.
No, but can we get a list of the businesses that have that potential issue?
The price is every single one. It is, yes.
Yeah, and then maybe we can figure out a way to reach out to them and have that conversation about city covering it and then just turning it back on assessment. But I think every one of them can say, well, how much? How much is it going to be? So if we had some idea.
First thing they'd ask is, what's wrong? What's wrong with our building as it is right now? And if they're going to change something that's going to cause it to be wrong, what's that going to be?
Yeah, I mean, MnDOT is a road business. We're not a building inspector, so it grows from there. We're just talking about the sidewalk portion. We're not talking about the doorway widths and open passwords. That's a whole different animal together. But as for the ADA compliant sidewalk piece, what's flat and level, and step height, that's all we're talking about here. And that's all, we control that. We don't worry about, I can't control it, the doorways, ADA compliant, or rails, handicaps, that's what we're not, that's beyond what we do in MnDOT. As far as the sidewalk, that part we know really well. It's just flat and the running water. That part is very PURA compliant, the 2 feet. And it's cracked. And if anything ever comes to crack or a corner, just it's not ADA compliant. That's one thing right there. So the pretty strict rules of ADA compliance for sidewalk and trails. So I guess we'll table that till later. Don will work with you on that one, and
Yeah, or the city.
maybe that next council meeting will come back and we'll get some more direction, because
Yeah, maybe that's the thing, is on the 11th, the council should decide if they even want to deal with it. Unless you know that now, because you did, you know, you were kind of making the comments along the lines of let the businesses worry about it another day. Don't worry, if you don't have to do it, don't do it.
Council thoughts?
I'd like to see one that's not compliant. I don't know really what we're talking here.
So do you know what the slope
Yeah, I can
is?
see that one.
Or do we have to get a hold of our ADA expert to find that
ADA
out?
compliant would be 0.2 or less, same thing as the sidewalk. You know, so anything, this is ADA compliant, that's not. I mean, it's pretty minimal difference, you know, so. And steps over 7 inches are not ADA compliant. I mean, there's a lot of simple things out there that you can look at. Any kind of crack that's more than a 1/4 inch in height, not ADA compliant. And so you'll find very few that are ADA compliant. So this is the sidewalk, that's all I'm talking about, so. Again, they vary in size too. Some have small doorways, some are bigger doorways, some have steps, some have railings. So the costs and the vary between each business owner. You have a question?
No, I'm just listening.
Give me that look in your eye like you're asking.
I have a couple when you're done.
Sounds good. Well, I'll keep battling here, so I'll break the next council meeting, Don. I can bring maybe a list and more itemized costs if you guys want. And by then we have to ask that meeting to move forward, because our plans are rolling.
I do think that, you know, bringing us the itemized cost is more than what we need done until we've, in the interim, spoke to the business owners on Main Street, and even, maybe they just don't care. Do the sidewalk, leave us alone, good enough. You know, but they should be given the option, I think, if we are entertaining the idea of paying for it up front and assessing taxes.
Sounds good.
Okay. Steve?
Tom, will the elevation of the street change from, like, how much? Like, which way?
It's gonna go up. Most kind of sidewalk is too steep. You got raised the elevation, make it flat, so it's gonna bring up elevation, everything will come up a little bit.
Okay, let's take the middle of the street. Will that change the elevation?
Probably a little bit, probably a couple inches.
Really? Wow.
Depends on the crosswalk and the running profile, it's all gonna be, you know, the sidewalk is pretty steep out there. So we gotta raise it up so it's flatter, and bring everything else at level across. So.
It's not going to be DL Mountain, but it'll be.
Yeah.
And then, you have given me no encouragement on this, but on the south end of town, we need 2 crosswalks. I mean, if you spent some time there and watched the kids, it's a fright. You know, it's 40, well, by, what's Southtown?
Where your 2027 plan is gonna begin,
So south of 20.
down there.
Yeah.
That's 2027.
That's a year away.
But we need a crosswalk, and it has to have a big study, you said.
Yeah.
But it says 40 miles an hour, but they're coming way faster. So the honk
We're
it,
talking about speeds now.
yeah, it's not safe for,
Speed reduced and crosswalks added?
yes.
No, it isn't.
So how can we get that started?
It already is.
It is?
It is. MinDOT did an ADA review a couple months ago. We reviewed it, walked it. So we know what's down there already. The plans already started on it, so to talk about that area. It's not me, different project manager, but they've been down there reviewing it and looking at it and making suggestions, and
Really?
Patrick's been down there already. So it's in the works. Viking Patrick's been down there, 80 Acres been down there already, so it's rolling.
So the speed limit might be reduced then, so there's a, see, that's the deal, you gotta have a big study town, so.
Yeah, that's.
I mean, they honk at kids if they're not going fast enough.
Yeah.
Wouldn't there be an opportunity, because you have to do that speed study though, but once the projects are done, and you've got more bicycle traffic, because we've got, multi-use paths on potentially both sides of the road, so now we've got more pedestrian traffic, which could slow traffic just naturally, Then to do a speed study that shows the traffic slowed naturally would reduce the speed.
It would. Best way to slow people down is make the roads narrower and add obstacles on the sides. Add curb and gutter, add trails, add medians.
But you told us how they set the speed limit. They do 80% of what people are driving.
Exactly.
That would not work down there.
It would work down there.
No.
And
not when
moving
they're-
on to, that's.
When they're coming into
I'm
town.
trying, so I don't wanna be
Okay,
tonight, so.
another day then.
The comments, I'll be fun
You'll
one.
be back, the next project back.
Let's see here, where was the list here? Beautification committee, we've chatted about that a little bit, Don and Mayor Brendan's not here.
I've got, right now, a list of 10 people, and I've got 3 or 4 more that I need to reach out to that express an interest to be on it.
Sure.
So I could have as many as a dozen. Just community members.
That's
And
good
I'll-
stuff.
Yeah, I'll give that to you and at
Yeah,
some
and
point.
based on the cost of, the good thing about the cost going up for the project, the cost of Midnight can contribute, Breast Tax has gone up. So now we can contribute about $225,000 to help pay for our beautification items on the project. That includes the bridge railing, which is going to be aesthetically pleasing, trees, planters, benches, wherever they are. Midnight can pay for a lot of that now on the project, based on the aesthetic portion of the cost policy. Some of the challenges are, of course, there's very little room, especially downtown. We only got 3.5 feet in the curb and a bike trail buffer zone. There's not much room in the downtown portion. We gotta save room for Nathan's trees, city trees. His lights, gotta go into someplace, the lights and signs to go into someplace. So the downtown piece is gonna be really tough to fit anything in there. But other directions, we can do stuff. So part of that beautification committee, we can look at options. Yes?
Have you determined in your plan yet when all them trees that are coming out of the city, when that removal will begin?
That's on my list here.
I'm just pushing this along,
Good question, so, the beautification stuff, I think that's unrolling, it's happening fast too. Once we get the list from Don and we can start meeting and see what's available and work with our Mid-CO folks and get a plan that you guys will vote on, that will include the project, so that's a pretty cool piece that we can help pay for. And the bridge railing piece I touched on, our bridge designers, they got some high-level designs I'll bring forth probably next council meeting, I can bring a presentation. There's options, you guys can choose colors, styles for the bridge railing that we're going to be replacing. So that's a pretty cool piece. The city has a lot to say on that, so. Trees, looking at this winter, taking down trees. I know it's a year earlier, but based on our maintenance crews, which are doing a D4 forests, are taking down trees on ourselves. As soon as we get a CADEC document signed, which has been a challenge, trying to get SHPO clearance, which is really hard to do, but it could start as soon as the end of next month if we get our CADEC document signed. So what our plan is to start taking down trees along the front of the turkey plant, everything on MnDOT right away this year in 2023. And we're going to leave a 2-foot stump, we're going to come off, leave 2 feet high, go back, we can pull them out of the ground in 2024. There's something to grab onto. And it's easier on maintenance. Supplies and tools have to go in the ground and cut them off flush. So it's going to be a big change this winter, and it's really the change the landscape for a whole year. But the start of the project is taking down the trees, and it's going to happen maybe as soon as the end of next month. We get all our documentation lined up. So that's going to be pretty huge. So there'll be a press release coming out, these letters to business owners and the residents that are affected very near future. But it's start. It's going to be pretty huge, so any questions on that or comments?
John? I just had a question. When do you need that beautification committee list?
As soon as you have it, we can start working on it. I mean, that's basically a city-led item. And another piece of the puzzle too is that the city has to decide how they're going to pay for designing it. I'll help design it, but the city is going to lead the design of the beautification items. And that will help pay for installing it, but we will not help pay for designing them. So that will help give ideas. So that's something you have to work with who you're going to hire to actually design the items. If it's going to be, Apex or KLJ, wherever you want to do it.
I think Bob is on the beautification committee.
Bob is kind of busy back there.
He's gonna move here?
Yeah. But it's not going to be very complex. I mean, MnDOT's going to help lead everything. It's going to be pretty minor. If I put the plan sheets together, we'll need a consultant to do that, because it's not part of my MnDOT project. So. It's kind of silly, but we can't use trunk highway eligible dollars to help design stuff this city's gonna pay for. That's just legality of it, so. So, yeah, it's, again, moving fast, but, you know, we're trying to get our next plan set in the middle of November, so that's a lot of things that will be decided on in the very near future. And the final plan will be next spring. So we got a little time, but not a lot, to get everything designed and computed and budgeted and everything else. So our goal is to let the job in January 24, so that's, you know, a year and a half away, so. And all production are way before then, so. But we're on track. You know, this season's been great to work with Bob and Good and Don and Mayor, right? It's been phenomenal. Attending all of our meetings, and they're probably sick of my event.team meetings, but after what? Well, I'm not going to care after 2 months, are you? Yeah, 3 months. Like, I got you for a while. And so trees. Staging is pretty huge. Not something we think we got to dig into next. A meeting coming up for the staging and detour part of it. That's going to be the biggest impact of the whole town is in 24. Where do we start? How do we do it? How do we? The direction we're going. That's a really big detail coming for us. So.
And you've set that date already.
I have.
And I think we've got I think you sent the link out already.
Yeah.
So I'll just, you know, in that regard, that staging meeting is kind of outside of the normal monthly one that we do. It's kind of a special, just talking about staging and routing and all that stuff.
Exactly.
Anybody that's interested in listening to that or sitting in those meetings, I mean, let me know, because we have the screen up. And every month, the meetings are open to anybody that wants to sit in on them. Granted, they're 10 o'clock in the morning, and it's difficult for many, I understand. But just to throw it out there again, that meeting, any of the rest of them that we have monthly, we're sitting here with the big screen and listening to what MnDOT has to say. Anybody's welcome.
Yeah, we're probably 2 or 3 times a week, different design groups.
Are they posted?
They're not posted because typically the only ones that have been on that committee is the mayor and Councilman Foster. But if you think from this stage going forward that we should post them just to be on the safe side, we can start doing that.
Posting means what? After
Posting means more than 3 of the council can attend without it being a quorum.
I would say the more the merrier, so. I mean, those PMTs, probably 60, 70 people attend those things.
Well, those are the monthly ones, but the staging one, I think,
Smaller
would
ones
be
are
very
right, that's
interested.
right.
Business owners in those might be very interested in listening to this part of it because you're talking about the rerouting in town and everything else, so, yeah.
Yeah, I'm almost done here.
This is reroute, the staging is the rerouting, but also isn't it where you're gonna have your supplies or your materials and?
Yeah, all that's going to be, yeah, talk about, you know, at our staging detour meetings. How we build it, where we start working with, you know, Apex and how they're putting the water and sewer, they're probably the main driver. You know, where they start, we'll follow on top. The bottom stuff goes in first, then we build everything on top, so. So their part's even probably most critical of how we're going to get the supplies in there, materials, build the project up, you know, keep businesses open, you know, keep access to the back doors and supplies to business owners and traffic, and it's tough. Some places don't have back doors.
I'm sorry to keep asking questions, but when you mentioned up, it made me think of you asking about the road height. So if the road raises up a little bit,
Yeah.
which means the shape of the sidewalk is going to be flatter,
Yeah.
is that going to present an issue at these stoops? Or on the top side of the sidewalk or multi-use path? Is that going to kind of pretty much stay at the same level to where it's not going to be a stoop issue then?
Well, so far we're matching in at the stoop, at our right-of-way line. We're matching in right there.
Okay.
So if we decide to do an ADA compliant stoop, so we gotta adjust our elevation to match in so they're ADA compliant. That does change our road design a lot. If it makes our job harder if we're doing that, but it's better for the residents if we're doing that. So we'll start back the doorway instead of at the right-of-way line to match in. So yeah, it's doable, but it takes a lot more work on our end.
Okay.
But that's why the sooner we know, the better for not redesigning later on.
Yeah, we're putting you on the next agenda, so.
Sounds good. What else you got here? I was surprised at the walk around and also that some people didn't know about the project coming in 24, 25. It's surprising. Business owners had no clue something's happening, no idea where it's holding the road, no idea we're redesigning the whole downtown, putting in mini roundabouts. That to me is not surprising, but really at the same time, you know.
I'd call it
there's articles in the
surprising.
paper and social
They wanted to
media
be surprised, they
and
just
open
couldn't pay
houses,
attention.
people just don't read them, so. So, yeah, it's surprising, so I have to keep talking to people, keep, you know, just walk to town again and hand out flyers. And I think once they see the trees coming out, it's gonna be a big eye opener for a lot of people. And they see big red X's on their trees and ribbons and chainsaws rolling and get ready, Don, your phone will start ringing. So, what the heck are you doing now, Don? You don't say call Tom, right? Yeah, but anyways, I'm battling too long, I apologize, but I'll be back here again, often you need me, and monthly PMPs, the website's always there, we're getting that developed. We're actually getting a layout on the website finally, that's gonna be ADA compliant. That's hard to do, both visually and hearing impaired can see them and read them and hear, that's a tough challenge. We're getting one on the website pretty soon, so that'd be pretty cool. We're also doing a 3D visualization of the whole project, so you can fly over and pop down and look at it. I'll be on the website soon too. Anyways, I'm done.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Otter Tail Power.
Good evening. My name is Nate Cundy. I'm the operations manager with Otter Tail Power Company. I'm going to talk to you tonight a little bit about our plan for the lighting project in conjunction with MnDOT's 2024 project. So we have a finalized design that is approved, well, I shouldn't say finalized, but an approved design by MnDOT. Before you tonight, Don's got the pictures of it, but basically it consists of 39 decorative standards and 106 aluminum alloy standards along Highway 59 and 108. So, is there specific questions or anything to answer, Don? Or?
Well, I asked Nate to come with and provided this plan in the packet because I wanted the council to see now that Otter Tail Power had provided something to MnDOT to make sure that the city's aware of what is kind of planned at this point in time. And then also to explain a little bit, because you guys understand the numbers, MnDOT understand the numbers, but in the packet, each one of the segments that we're looking at had, you know, a little chart like this behind it, and I don't know what that means. But then also to put it in the packet and give the council an opportunity to look at, you know, how they're planning to line the lights along the 59 corridor and the 108 corridors east and west, and if you had any questions on it. I know there was an initial plan, and this, by the way, is based off of an earlier decision by the council about how far they wanted to extend the lights north, south, east, west. You remember that? And so then they submitted a plan to MnDOT. MnDOT reviewed it and came back with some revisions to meet MnDOT standards for lights and stuff in the corridors, but I just wanted to have the council look at it and have a chance to have Nate explain, especially the numbers behind the charts, you know, on each segment.
So, yeah, to kind of play on that, I mean, depending on how far you want to extend the lighting, MnDOT has very specific standards for their lighting along the roadways and pathways, so to say, well, you can just expand it a little bit further isn't going to happen. We basically have to maintain the consistent layout of it. It's just a matter of if you want to draw a hard stop, we draw a hard stop. That's really about the only option we have these days.
So this first segment is obviously Highway 59 coming into town. You can kind of see the spacing of the lights, and the spacing is, like you said, it's based on MnDOT standards and requirements for lights.
Yep.
So then, unless somebody's got a question on this, can you explain to us, what are we looking at here? What is this telling us?
Yep, so this is, you have 18 aluminum alloy poles with LED 10 fixtures on there. So those are the second most powerful LED heads that we offer in an area light. LED 13 would be the step above that. But this is what has been recommended at this speed and with this spacing, so.
Okay, so I do notice the lumens there, 13,775, which means it's pretty bright. I get that.
Yep.
And now those are the big lights up along the curve up there. So then, the second segment then is basically the turkey plant, in front of the turkey plant going down. And this is one of the areas before the revision was done that I actually made the comment, every place else, and I don't know if you guys noticed it, but every place, there's kind of coming through town, there's staggered lights on both sides of the roadway, except for here. So I mentioned in my comment was, why are we staggering them everywhere, but in this segment of it, we've got lights just on the east side. We're not staggering them, but they're just on the east side, and on the west side is where we're putting the multi-use trail. So that's one of the areas I'm thinking, shouldn't they be staggered?
Yeah, I guess we'd have to look at the space that's left in between the trail and
Well, I know they're
mean,
taking.
we can definitely tweak the pattern of them a little bit, or the placement, as long as the distance between them really doesn't change.
Yep. And then on this segment too, then, you're going back to, this is what that segment shows.
Yep, so you got 9 aluminum alloy poles, LED 10s, 30-foot poles.
And still the same 13,775 lumens.
Yep.
Right here. Now, there's a point for me pointing this out, I think.
Okay.
There is.
So then we get down further, now we're tracking south of City Hall, going down, and here you see they are staggered, okay? Which is good. And then we get to the same thing. Now we're coming, some of them are 8,400, some of them are 20,000 in lumens now. What's the difference there?
Yep, so now we're getting into some decorative stuff. So we have, in this particular section, we have a mix. We got 6 aluminum alloys on 30-foot aluminum pole. And coming into the downtown from the north, we're gonna have some Granvilles, which are the quantity of 2. Those are our post-op fixtures. So those would be the new LED equivalent to what your old lights used to be. But they are extremely much more brighter than what you currently have right now with the retrofit post-top options that we kind of put on as a Band-Aid until this project came.
And that was my point. So do you know what the lumens are of the ones that are downtown right now?
Let's see, we're gonna post-top 5, so I'm guessing they're probably gonna be around that 2,000.
Okay, so everybody talks about how dim them lights are downtown, how something's gotta happen. Well, we're going from 2,000 lumens to 8,400. It should be quite a bit brighter.
Yeah, we've been doing if you come to Fergus and drive Union Avenue, essentially you cross the train bridge on North Union heading into downtown. We have this mix of LED 10s on aluminum alloy poles, hit Lincoln Avenue, all the way down to the next railroad track. It's a mix of these Granvilles and the 30-foot esplanades that are intersections. And then once again, it picks up on the aluminum alloys again. So if you want to get a really good visual of what has been done and what the lighting is like, come check it out. It's turned out really nice, so.
Okay.
So then, yeah, Don, if you want to just go back there, the other 3 that are on there, the 20,000, those would be our decorative esplanades. So kind of that acorn hanging off an arm. I believe those are needed to be used around the mini roundabout for MnDOT lighting standards.
Okay. So, since you mentioned them were the ones that would be the requirements for MnDOT around the roundabouts, the one thing I think of on the north side is, on the corner, we got that apartment building on the southeast corner that has apartments up on the second floors. So they're going to be right outside that roundabout.
Okay.
Is 20,000 lumens going to be awfully bright for those, or are they not high enough to be really affecting people trying to sleep in their apartments?
I'm sure it probably will be affecting them. I mean, you're taking probably a dim area and lighting it up, no matter what the mounting height is going to be. That's what's going to happen. So
I know there are streetlights on that corner, the north intersections now, but
yeah. So I mean, you're not obligated to go with the decorative option there, right? I mean, we could put the aluminum alloy in there with the LED 10 as long as MnDOT is fine with that. And we do have what we call light trespass shield, which helps direct the light more onto the roadway than addressing any backlight.
Does that
But
directional option apply, could it apply to the 20,000?
No.
Okay.
Not an option for decorative.
Are the aluminum, excuse me for interrupting, but the aluminum standards, is that kind of a directed light?
So the standards don't necessarily have anything to do with the light projection. That's more on the fixture.
Okay.
But yeah, so there are different patterns, right? So what we would be putting on the aluminum alloy poles is basically similar to what you have now throughout the rest of the town, besides the post-top options that you have downtown. So it's kind of a circled pattern of light that pretty much is directly right underneath the fixture. And it just depends on the rating of the fixture of how intense that light is, or bright the light is, and how far that certain swings. So, does that kind of answer?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, this next one is basically going through the downtown area. You can see the spacing of the lights there. I know they're not, it's kind of maybe hard to see, but I think the whole idea behind the pictures is the aerial is light, so you can see the black dots in there to some extent.
And these are all staggered?
Correct.
Yes, these are staggered on both sides of the roadway. And then now we're looking at, again, I assume the quantity of 4 is that south roundabout area.
Yep, we typically use these at intersections, and once again, it's gonna be that mini roundabout area that's gonna require more foot candles. So the rest of them are the post-op Granvilles.
Okay. Then we're going down south, Fire Hall, school area. Got them on both sides of the road, all the way down.
Yep, here we finish up the decorative, one Esplanade on the intersection, and then we start getting into the aluminum alloys again, basically once we get the blocks south beyond the high school.
And now we're out of the highway project, the 2024 project. This area is not in the project till 2027, but we're still looking at adding these lights. You guys would still do this in 2024?
Correct.
Okay, so now we've got the staggered lights going all the way down to, looks like 12th Avenue.
So they would be added in 2024, but the project itself isn't, or the street project itself isn't happening until 2027.
And that area of town, the street project doesn't come through until 2027, from 5th Avenue by Faith Church
Right.
out. Yep.
But they're still being added
They're
as
being-
part of the whole, this whole.
As part of the whole lighting project, yeah. I mean, there'll be pieces of this that we probably won't do in 2024, depending on where MnDOT's at, right? We're gonna work in conjunction with them, so if they're saying, well, we're gonna wait till do the 2 blocks downtown until 2025, we're not gonna come in there and put our stuff in without MnDOT being in there doing their thing first, so it's really working hand in hand with them and whatever progress they make, so.
So if this portion of the project really isn't going to be until a highway project in 2027, we probably wouldn't see these lights till 2027?
Oh, no, we can do whatever's not in their scope now, as long as it's out of their 27 project scope, which we have to get a MnDOT permit to be able to do this, so
Okay.
they're gonna review our plan and say, yeah, that's fine. Especially if it's simply mill and overlay and they're not actually widening out any of the roads.
Okay. And then this one looks like it's all the LED 10s that,
Yep, all aluminum alloys, LED 10s on there, yep.
okay. And then this is,
Don, I don't know if you have your email handy, I emailed you like 3 pictures of what the standards are, what the fixtures actually look like, if you
Yeah.
wanted to pull those up.
We had them pictures too.
Yeah, I
back.
know I had them at one.
yep, the council basically picked the ones that you have on here.
Yeah. So I guess moving forward, you know, we kind of have done our design up to MnDOT standards. We're kind of waiting for your decision. The supply chain and the utility industry is ridiculous. Like, we ordered a new transformer today, they're quoting us 3 years before we get it. So if you want to ensure that you have material to be able to do this project, we need to get our outdoor lighting services contract executed this year so we can place an order come January in anticipation for construction beginning in '24 to give us an entire, basically year to 18-month lead time to make sure we get delivery of this. So Don does have the contracts. They're separated out purely by decorative counts and then aluminum alloy counts. It was easier to do separate them than combine them both into one contract. But one of the things that's unique about our contract is that you're only obligated to have them in service for 1 year period. So after 1 year, you give us written 30-day notice. You could say, go ahead, Otter Tail, take that light out of there. We don't want to pay for it anymore. And we'd be on the hook. The other thing that to keep in mind is that we're not asking you for any money up front to do this project. You're not required to come up with anything other than the monthly tariff rate for this. You don't pay any additional charges for energy. It's simply one packaged cost. We take care of all the maintenance. We take care of all the replacement. We can take care of locating all the underground conductors. You're not liable for anything. That's kind of where we're at. So, comes at a price tag, though. It's about $78,000 is what it's going to cost to run this lightway each year. Have about $11,000 worth of lighting right now that will be replaced. So you're looking at about a net increase to the city of about $68,000. But if you explore other options, which I would, if you want to spend your time doing, you're not going to find anybody that's going to do lighting cheaper. Because we're a utility, we have the buying power to be able to purchase these things at a lot cheaper rate. Since we're owning it, we don't have to have UL listed material. Meets all the Minnesota standards for electrical inspector and electrical safety, but we don't have to fall under a private electrician's license that has to use UL listed equipment, which you can figure about a 25% markup on just any of the material right there. So you're welcome to check it out if you think that's high, but if you take a look at what the 15-year payback would be, it'd be probably around $1 million or so just on this project. And I don't think you could even come close to touching this installed for $1 million. Life expectancy of our fixtures are 15 years. There is no bulbs in them anymore. It's when they die, the whole fixture dies, you have to replace it. So that's kind of why we look at 15 years before you have to start putting more money into the system. And if you were to go with a private-owned system, you'd be on the hook for cost of energy with that, plus all the maintenance, and you'd be obligated to locate the underground conductors associated with that. Which is kind of why you went away from your current municipal-owned system to begin with. Yep. It was reaching its end of life, so.
But this was another area where you've got the staggered lights over here, and then this is basically east of Highway 59, over by the Catholic Church, and then you go this way, Crane Johnson, et cetera, and you've got them staggered here. But then when you get out here, there is nothing out by 2nd Avenue, and so I want to point out these non-staggered areas because council, I think we need to consider if we want to change that, so there's some staggering there.
Yeah, so one of the things that take into consideration here is, I'm not sure, we have a consultant that does the bulk of our designing, right? So one of the things they have to take into account is where other utilities are located. So I can't honestly come up and tell you today, maybe there's a gas main in that boulevard, and that's why she located all of them on the other side of the street, just for feasibility of construction.
Sure.
But isn't the sidewalk out to the apartments on the north side of that 108?
You'll see that in a second. This is just the in more of the in-town area, and that was the next picture. This is going from third out to the apartment building and beyond, actually. We're going out to the transfer station road, and they are staggered out here. So you see that, it was just that other gap, and there might be a viable reason why that one block
Right.
area, there's not.
I'd have to double check with her too, but I mean, typically there's some reason of why we deviate from what the normal standard would be, so.
Okay.
My point being though, the sidewalk or the multi-use, whatever we want to call it this week, is going to be on that north side.
It's gonna actually be on the south side.
I thought,
I believe it was the south side.
The north side, the walkable shoulder we're putting,
Yeah.
we're paving 6 foot wide.
so the sidewalk path is on the south side of,
And then when you get out to the
Disregard.
apartment building, there'll be a crosswalk out there.
okay.
But the speed limit will still be 55, right?
What's the elevation gonna be? Okay, and that's all the LED tents like every place else. And this is going out 108 east, and, you know, they're all basically staggered on this side too, going all the way out. So there's no-
Where's Ann Lane in that picture?
Ann Lane is right here.
Okay. The lights beyond Ann Lane?
Yep, all the way out to this area right here. I believe is as far as it goes that way. Yep. So then he touched, and I didn't get the emails or see the emails prior to having to get all this stuff into the system so we could display it. But the other part that I was gonna show is what he had touched on was the fact that currently, the decorative lights that we have in place right now have a cost to them. Not all of them, but just the Highway 59 corridor. And then with this design that he's got in here, it goes up to about $78,000.
Yep.
And, I didn't see the response to the email, but right now, our annual lighting bill in the city, citywide, is about 32,000. So we're basically going from 32,000, if I understood right, to when this is all done based on the design, we go from 32 to 78.
No, that's not accurate.
That's not right?
No, so, I mean, you're paying a tariff rate for every light in your town, right? So that's at $33,000. So of the ones that are being replaced, that adds up to about $11,000 in savings, right? So you subtract your 11,000 from your 33 because the rest of the lights in town are staying as is, so you're paying 22.
Okay.
We're gonna add another $78,000 in lighting costs.
Okay, so that was kind of the way, so the way I laid it out in the
Sorry.
email was right.
Yeah.
It's about 90-some thousand it's gonna go to when this is all said and done. But
98,000.
But again, we talked about the maintenance, the repairs, all that stuff we don't have to worry about, and it wouldn't be $90,000 for us to take on this lighting again, or $1 million, whatever you said, but what is, you need to think about that gap up at West Central. Do we need to stagger some, which adds lights, which means we're going north of 90-some thousand, but to me, to have some, huh?
Show that section again.
Can you,
It's right here. So it's all on the east side of the road. There's nothing on the west side where the
I know
multi-use
they-
path is gonna
They
be.
put those over there because that's where the big 6-inch gas main goes through.
The 6-inch gas mains comes along the west side?
Comes along the west side, yes.
Okay, well, maybe that's the only place we can have them then. It's good to know.
That in West Central itself is pretty lit up.
yeah. So where
Could
does,
be, I just wanted to point it out.
how do we, when we budget, where does the money come from to pay for our electric bill?
The general fund.
General fund, so we just add,
Street lighting in there, so it will add.
we just add $78,000 to the general fund, which,
Starting in 2025 or 4 and beyond, yeah. Now-
And in 2024 and 5 and beyond, will it be 120,000 because of the way everything's going so crazy? I mean, how often do your tariff rates increase? I don't remember talking about that.
Yep, we actually, very rarely do they change. We actually have to go to the Minnesota Public Utilities Commission and file a rate case in order for us to actually change any of our rates. So very time consuming and very expensive, and quite honestly, street lighting is like such a low hanging fruit, it's not gonna be a driver to go do a rate case, so.
They're too busy putting up windmills. Solar. But, so then, you know, going back to the extent that we wanted to add lights to the city, the only way to get that down, if that's what we chose to do, or the city chose to do, is to go back out and look at how far out you want to go. Do we want to go all the way out to, and yeah, I think we do, but do we want to have new streetlights put in all the way out to Golf Course Road? If you wanted to try and reduce that down, and I don't know what kind of reduction it would mean by taking out some of these lights, but to remove lights to get that cost down, I don't think it's a good idea, because if nothing else, we want to put more lights in.
Well, if I understood right, you really can't take them out unless you eliminate
You can.
from the end.
You can cut off parts of the end, right? Or you can say, you know what, we don't want to go decorative, we want to just go all aluminum alloy. I mean, that's where the bulk of the cost is.
Are we aluminum alloy already out there, right?
Yeah.
Because they don't really need to be decorative till we're getting into the city common.
You're basically decorative from roundabout to roundabout.
Right.
Nowhere else.
That's it.
I just wanted to point that out, because that is adding quite a bit of light
Take
cost.
that back, I guess you're decorative from the south roundabout all the way to the school, to the high school.
Oh.
Yeah. 'Cause I believe that's actually where most of them are now, or where your current limits are now. In front of the fire hall, I'm pretty sure it's decorative lighting there.
Yeah, because I think we talked about replacing decorative with decorative.
Right.
Third Avenue Northwest.
Yeah. So we basically kind of took what was there and mirrored it again, just with updated decorative lighting.
Yeah.
I think I remember having that conversation. Yeah. I like light. I think it makes the city look more attractive for people coming into the city, especially, I mean, after dark. Makes the city look a little bigger. But, you know, $100,000 a year for lights, it's a lot.
Steve?
Makes it safer. My concern are the crosswalks. Right now, they're really dark, and for me, like at the high school, when you're headed south and the new headlights are coming at you, it's really tough to see. There's some trees in the way, but they'll be gone. Okay. So, I mean, is that going to change at all?
Yeah, I mean, what we have out there currently, it's, well, quite honestly, it doesn't meet MnDOT standards right now.
Okay.
It's, I'll fully admit it, it's a terrible lighting system that we have in place, but
Okay.
we couldn't find parts for your high-pressure sodiums anymore. We just flat out couldn't even get bulbs at the end of it. So we either just said, well, we're gonna leave it dark, or we find what's the next best replacement. And if you remember, at that time, we were still going through this tariff process to get the Minnesota Public Utilities Commission to actually approve our offerings and our pricing, but we just couldn't wait that long. So we put what we had approved in the books today, which is what you have out there, which is terrible.
Put more oil in the lamp.
So, Nate, is each standard, does it have the equivalent of a 100-watt light bulb, LED light bulb?
Oh, it's much greater than that.
How do you get more out of 100 watts then?
What's that?
But it's the equivalent of 94 watts, right, with each?
Well, it gives a wattage of what.
That's the only part I understood.
That's the energy consumption, right?
There's the wattage of the fixture, but the lumens are a different thing, right? So, I mean, it's no different than your LED bulb at home where it says, oh, it uses 9 watts and it's the equivalent of 60-watt bulb, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's a different of, a 6-watt LED is what used to be a 40-watt incandescent.
Yeah.
So don't buy into the wattage rating a whole lot. I mean, the lumens is really what you have to pay attention to. That's telling you the amount of light that it's putting out.
Well, I'm thinking of a 100-watt LED bulb, so.
Sure.
Okay.
But they don't, I mean, you can't go buy a 100-watt LED bulb that you could screw into like your lamp. It would be the equivalent to it'd draw too much current for the conductor size, so.
Gotcha.
So the decorative
It would
ones
burn
don't
through
wait.
your retinas.
Yeah. You're thinking the equivalent of what it would be. so.
So in this chart here, the decorative ones are the ones now that are 2,000 lumens and they're gonna go to 84.
Yeah.
So that's gonna be 4 times brighter than whatever?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I mean, and that's, keep in mind, this is already approved by MinDOT, and I don't want to speak for Tom, but I'm pretty sure you guys call it like a strobe effect, is that correct? So, I mean, if they weren't spaced together properly and had decent light overlap on there, and met the foot candle requirements for the crosswalks and pedestrian ways, I wouldn't even be here talking to you, we'd be still redesigning this thing, so. Just to kind of give you some reassurance on, yes, you'll be pleased with the end product.
So, that's why I asked Nate to come, so you guys could see what's planned.
Thanks for coming and staying so late.
Thank you.
Well, like I said, I mean, in order for us to really move forward, even on like the designing piece of it, we gotta get this into our system, but until we get a contract, we don't really want to keep investing resources into it without some reassurances of ourselves, so.
Do we need to approve this, or what action?
Obviously, the contracts weren't in the packet, but, you know, he kind of explained, you know, what they were. If you want to see them, I guess we can have them on the October 11th meeting, and we'll have them in the packets if you want to see the contracts themselves.
Yeah, it's our standard.
It's very similar to what you executed before. The only thing different is the light.
It's the exact same contract.
Supply.
It's just different, calling out different lights at different rates based on the design. But it's the same standard contract that we use in all of Minnesota. It's approved by the Public Utilities Commission. Even if you wanted to review it and strike something out of it, we'd say, I don't think so, because this is already approved by the Minnesota Public Utilities Commission. So, and like I said, you're only on the hook for actually a year, right? You could install this a year later. You could say, get it all out of there, we don't want it anymore.
And you guys did see the contract that, when we gave the decorative lights back, that contract, you guys looked at it, you got a chance to see it and everything else, and you approved that. The only thing that's changed in it is now you're going with a different light.
Correct.
Yeah, and they still own them, we still rent them.
Everything,
Terrace,
what they're
everything's the
responsible
same.
for and everything is all the same. And
We
sure,
gotta have light.
we can have it on
We're
the
not
October
taking any
11th
away.
meeting, and you guys can see them if you want to see them.
I'm still trying to swallow $100,000 light bill.
Well, in executing those two, them agreements and contracts, does that call out the number? Can the number be changed after that? Or we have to, if we wanted to cut some off the ends, would we have to redo the contracts again?
We'd probably have to redo the contract again.
Well, we'd be on that hook though, for the year. We'd have to do an entire year before we could change it after we agree to a contract.
Correct, but I think we still want to do business in good faith, because we don't want to go and install something only for 12 months for you to come and say, no, we don't, we're always planning on removing those, right? So our biggest thing is like, how much resources do we put into this to continue to design, get materials, orders ready to place material orders, and invest our money without having the contract in place? Our attorneys would say, none. We've obviously invested time and resources into design already, operating in good faith, but we're kind of at the decision point where until we get a contract in place, we don't feel comfortable investing anymore.
But I was thinking of it in terms if the council, without seeing the contracts, knowing that they're the same exact thing, all it changed in it was a number of lights and the type of lights, approved the signing of them contracts tonight, and then all of a sudden, by the next council meeting, all of a sudden you thought, no, we want to cut back on the ends, then would they have to be re-executed again?
They would, but how, if you take a look at the contract, I have it actually from August 2024 to August 2025. So you could approve them now, get them signed, Don can get them to me later this week, and say 3 months down the road, you're like, yeah, we don't want to extend it that far out. Maybe let's rehash that. That's fine, but at least I can go back and tell my sourcing department that we have a contract in place, let's start getting our package together on getting materials here. So, and we can refine that if we need to.
So I don't see any harm in approving the contracts tonight, but it's up to you.
Well, do we know roughly what our monthly bill, our annual bill would, tariff rate would drop to should we remove from Ann Lane back to whatever, and in the north end back to the turkey plant from, or let's just
Yeah,
say,
so aluminum alloy pole, like what you have pulled up here, if you were to reduce that, it's about $30 a month per pole.
per pole.
Yeah. So you end up with some savings, not a ton. The decorative stuff is what gets expensive.
Yeah, these out here are $300 a year. 3,300, $400 a year.
Yes.
For each one of them.
Yeah, the aluminum alloy is very economical. It's the decorative that get pricey.
Right. And I don't think we want to monkey with the number of those because it's downtown. I don't think we should monkey with it anyhow. It's a big pill to swallow, but like he says, probably it isn't gonna go up, everything else is.
So you're more than welcome to explore your other alternatives with municipal lighting, but.
No, that was never the idea that I was bringing up. I was just about light reduction.
Right. Yeah, it's definitely a possibility, but in most communities, you have a comprehensive plan in place and you're going limit to limit, really end up being pleased with it.
Well, we've got some time to think about this and look at it, and
Yeah, absolutely.
next meeting, we can put it back on the agenda.
Yeah, I'm totally fine with that. Like I said, I just, by year end is kind of what we'd like to see. But until that point, we're gonna kind of leave it status quo until you guys decide where you want your limits to be and where you're at.
Right, before you start sourcing, yeah.
Well, and applying for an MnDOT permit to do this work too.
So we'd have a decision by next meeting.
Time as well.
I would say we would have a decision by next meeting.
Yeah. Okay.
Any other questions for me?
Thank you.
All right, thanks for your time.
Thanks for your informative discussion here.
Absolutely, thanks, Tom.
So we'll put them agreements in the next packet. So you guys will be able to see what they look like, the same things.
I think our hangup is just the number, right?
Oh, yeah. But light is wonderful. I mean, it just makes you look better, you know, the city.
I love going into a well-lit city. But.
Okay,
Safer.
Joe Clausen.
All right. I better say good evening instead of good night. All right. Representing the Chamber of Commerce here, so a couple of quick things. One is facility request. Talked with Don about using this location as a semi-permanent location for the Chamber to meet. So the request would be the first Tuesday of every month, and we'd like to, at this point in time, request approval for 6 months to start with, and then we're going to continue to see what our options are. Time will probably be running from 4:30 till 7, something like that. Meeting would initiate at 5 to 5:30 would be board, 5:30 till 6:30 or 7, I suppose, would be the latest for actual chamber general meetings.
Would it need to be staffed? I mean, would you need to have city staff here for it?
That's part of the conversation and why, you know, bring it before the council so we can have a chance to discuss it. We're done at 4:30 or 5:30 on that particular night of the week. So between 5:30 and when they're done at 7 o'clock, we're not going to be sitting here waiting to close the doors. So obviously, making sure, you know, the door's locked, have the police department check, whatever is an option, but that's something that needs to be thought through.
I mean, can those doors even be secured to keep anybody from, well, the restrooms are gonna need to be accessible.
The restrooms are right there. they can close the doors and just use the restrooms as they need to. And I don't know that we necessarily have an option with, or a problem with, you know, if those doors are locked and they just let people, you know, in and out or whatever, as long as at the end of the night when they close the doors, they're locked.
Secure, yeah.
Make sure they're locked.
All the doors in the hallway are locked after hours, so.
Right. So that'd be the only door they'd get in and out of.
That'd just be this front door.
Yep. It's just making sure it's locked on the way out and who's responsible for that. Be the only question.
Where do you currently meet every month?
Anyway.
That's
part of the problem.
So you're homeless,
And,
basically.
well, not completely homeless, you know, if you
Right,
usually
right.
pay somebody for lunch,
Right.
they'll let you use their room.
Right, right.
That's honestly the system that we're at. I mean, we'd love to be back at Historic City Hall, you know, because we pay rent as a chamber, but the upstairs would have the ability to, you know, house us easily, but again, you know, I mean, I think that would be a great project at some point in time to get everything back in operational order, but again, you know, lots of dollars and down the road.
Is the main floor conference area big enough for chamber to meet?
Where
There's
at
that
the Historic
conference-
City
There's a
Hall?
conference
Yeah.
table in there,
That's
right?
one of the things that we talked about, but there's that big table in there, and it just depends on, I thought, you know, I was thinking that what Joe was talking about was they'd really like to grow the attendance at the chamber meetings. Well, they've got more space here. Down there, they're limited by that big table. How do you set it up down there so you could have any room for people to sit in? That's probably no better than going to Jimmy's or Pelican Pizza and they're using their room. So that was the concern there.
Well, I think one of the things here too that is appeal is the technology. You know, you've got the ability to record, audio, video, the use of the smart screen, because we're going to start doing some things that hopefully will serve businesses. So the next two sessions we're going to be doing are on Chamber Vision, City Vision, because I believe, and when we talk about all these discussions, you feel the weight of a tight budget. And that really comes down to the fact that our businesses are not strong and healthy. Because if they are, it makes it easy to shoulder the expenses for all the things that we're talking about. So the continual tension, to me, I see it as the ability of the city to generate more. You know, so that's one of the big things that we want to do with the council. Though I've already got a schedule for, you know, the first 5 of the 6 meetings. So the first 2 are going to be vision. We're going to do some vision casting and planning. The third one will be Christmas mixer. So we're going to do a social. And I'm trying to figure out a plan to do actually a social experiment of when we use social media marketing and how you can use it to work through to our city's advantage. I believe generally we've got space to improve as a city and all of our local businesses. So the following 2 sessions, January and February, we're bringing in some specialists for social media marketing and some additional training. So that's where this space, smart screen, be able to use it all would be actually very appealing, beneficial to the channel.
So, Don, you're okay, and Brian, I mean,
As long as they can figure out the door, I don't mind.
Figure out the door, and if they get somebody to run this thing, it's on them.
Clean up when you're done?
Yep, you break it, you buy it.
well, I move to approve.
I'll
that I'm
second.
using.
Moved and seconded to approve. Any discussion?
I would just say, Joe, make sure you get us that 6-month schedule so we can get it in our calendar so we don't double book the room.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
We already have one meeting booked, right?
Not, is that?
November.
is there a council meet, he said the first Tuesday.
First Tuesday every month. That's
And
our
we're-
regular
and
schedule.
We're on the second Tuesday in November,
Oh, the only.
or the third Tuesday. We're on the third Tuesday.
Because election is.
Right.
Yeah, so we're on the
it'd be
third
November
Tuesday.
1st.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, so we're
Yeah.
good for November.
because November 2nd was going to be a special meeting for the applicants.
Yeah,
If the first is a Tuesday, you'd be fine. Yep.
okay. Any other discussion? If not, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor of the motion to let the chamber use this for 6 months, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have one other thing that I would like to throw up. I believe we talked to the businesses in town. There's been a lot of discussion about the economic development director position. And with that kind of coming off the table and looking more at CETA, I just would like to make a proposal that we create a team, call it whatever you want, but something that would address economic development. So what I'd really like to see is we have an EDA, city EDA representation, the EDC, Pelican Rapids Area EDC, the Chamber of Commerce, and potentially some other additional skilled people, and allow them to be an economic development portal, pipeline, someplace where we're looking at discussion. Because I believe that there's a tremendous frustration in the city that we don't feel like we're going anywhere. I really think we look around, we see all the communities around us are advancing. And I feel like there's some back pressure to do something. So I know that it was not on the agenda. We didn't officially talk about it. But I would like to throw that out as a proposal, that we move to do this organization in order to begin to create a pipeline for business ideas. The only paid person would be out of the monies that are already allocated to the EDA. I guess there was some monies allocated there that could potentially do for, or what we're doing for CETA. You know, I did talk with Don Lorson. He is not available.
Nope.
So
CETA will be here on October 25th to talk to the council and just kind of explain, here's what we're all about, and here's how we can possibly help. And I have some template documents that they've kind of used in other cities. And it really kind of depended on, you know, how often you want them here, but they'll be here on the 25th, and that'll be in the 25th packet.
So Joe, are you saying in lieu of the CETA Avenue
No,
to
with CETA.
this? So this group would work with
Correct.
CETA? Okay.
yeah, well, I mean, if Don Lorson is not available, because he's retired and he's currently doing economic development work with 2 cities already. So he said, my plate is full, I got 10 grandchildren, and I work with my church as well. So he said that was it. The question is, would CETA try to bring someone else into our area? Or the other question is, do we have someone else that would potentially be local that would continue to help us out?
CETA basically is looking for people just like everybody in the state's looking for people, and they do have depending on how much the city wants to use them, they do have somebody that could be a part of that, a part of economic development, and not Don, but somebody else that could do that, coming up from another area, not to live here or live in the area, but somebody that also already does something not too far away that would potentially look at doing work in Pelican. But one of the things that we talked about typically is, in Don's case, in Frazee, he facilitates their EDA and keeps things moving along that way. How we structure it in Pelican is totally up to Pelican. And who you want to work with CETA is totally up to Pelican. One of the things that I thought was really in the information that they shared with me is one of the things you could get them to do, and my kind of thought was, after talking to him, and we'll see what happens, what the discussion is on the 25th, but one of the things that he talked about was CETA working with EDA, whoever, and coming up with an economic development plan for 2023. And that you could use them to help facilitate that. Once that economic development plan for 2023 is established, then CETA makes sure that everybody is, that plan is ticking along and the results driven based on the plan that they put together. That's one of the things we could get them to do for us. And then by looking at the comp plan, by looking at what we're trying to accomplish, whether it's the chamber, whether it's the EDA, whoever, get that in the plan, and then that group potentially, or EDA, works with that individual to keep things moving along.
John?
One point, we gotta move on, because I've been here for 3.5 hours. But this EDA thing is something that I brought up 2 years ago in front of council when I was on the planning commission. It's something that was brought up in 2016 with the business retention and expansion plan. You mentioned about EDA here. This town should really look at Right now, you've got 5 members of EDA right here. And the city council, Don Solden, I believe, yeah. This city has to take a look at divesting itself from the city council divesting itself from the EDA and taking what he's talking about of getting a group of people together, and that becomes forming the new EDA development.
I'm going to end this discussion because we've been here for a long time. And you brought up some very good points, and I think we need to take it up at another point. But I've got a meeting here that I have to get to because I have my team that's waiting for me here, and I'm going to have to go here pretty soon, so.
Sounds good.
Go until there's,
Yeah.
you leave a quorum here.
Yeah.
Let's get in.
So we'll take this up at another time, and I appreciate your comments here, because this is something we've been kicking around, but we really need to get moving here, so.
I agree. Thank you for your approval on the facility use, and we'll take the next one up again. I don't know if you want to take it up at the next meeting or how that works, but I'm open.
Okay.
All right. I'm good.
Okay, next, industrial park consideration here. We're gonna skip that for right now.
So the reason this is on the agenda is because I was contacted by Sam Oman and ultimately John with the idea of wanting to have the council consider a industrial park lot, a transfer of an industrial park lot to a business that they've got in place that they would like to expand. And so you can ask John any questions you'd like to about it, but the Planning Commission last night took it up. In front of you is another one of those findings of fact from the Planning Commission that kind of looks at it from the standpoint of the comprehensive plan. Very similar to what you guys just looked at upstairs, obviously, because it's kind of the same situation. But what the request was to transfer one of the industrial park lots, and then what would happen is they would put a building similar, as John explained it last night, similar to what's on the screen here, up on that location. As far as the business and what they're doing and that type of thing, please ask John, but I just wanted to kind of show you this, and then also how it would fit on the lot, which is lot 3 of the lot 2 of the industrial park up there. So John, if you want to kind of explain a little bit, or John Waller, whatever, about the business and what you're looking to do.
So do you want me to read the?
Why don't you wait till John gets done here?
Let me just say that of all the people that have been talking here at the meeting tonight, I'm the first one that's looking at giving something back to the city, because right now you're getting 0 tax dollars on that property. If it's comparable to what Mr. Strand is paying, it's significant. So, started a spray foam business. We've been looking to rent a facility in order to store our equipment in the wintertime, or just get it out from outside. Came across the idea, after being on Planning Commission for a while, that the industrial park is there. I did see that there were 3 empty lots in the industrial park. I said, let's give it a whirl. And Don sent over the agreement today. I don't have any problem with what was in the agreement. As far as we don't put the building back, give it back to you, but that's not going to be the case. We'll get it done. We want to get it done sooner than later.
So the agreement that I sent over to him was the agreement that was put in place for Councilman Strand. It was the same exact agreement as what Jason Stetz had. The only thing different on them is the name of the business in the agreement. So basically, it was transferring the property to them. They had 18 months to put a building up on it, and if they didn't, they couldn't sell it to anybody else until the building, obviously, once a building is up and the business is going, if they want to transfer it or sell it to somebody else, they could do that. But they had 18 months to put it up. If that wasn't done, they had to transfer it back to the city at the city's expense. And then as far as the the agreements, the recording, if there's any attorney costs in putting the agreement together. I had an estimate in there or whatever, but that would be covered by them also. So that's what the agreement that I emailed to them to review is. It was a draft. And then I also emailed it to the city attorney so that Lindsay could take a look at it if she had any comments or concerns about it. That original agreement that was used in the case of Councilman Strand's business before he got on the council, and also Jason Stead's, was drafted by an attorney. The city didn't draft it. And there was also a deed, accompanying quitclaim deed to that also. Do you have any comments about it, Lindsay?
You know, I didn't get a chance to look at it today because my daycare provider is out with COVID.
Oh, there is.
I had a fun twist to my workday.
So this is the industrial park lot, just to show you guys exactly which lot we're talking about. It's this lot right here. Councilman Strand will have neighbors.
Wouldn't be that much different than the building you're putting up.
It's a lot I wanted, but I wanted it, but that's another story. We don't have time for that.
We'll take one of the bigger ones.
Well, yeah, you could do that.
Do we need to go through this?
That was just the one that basically
Do we
Sam
need to go
talked to
through
me
this?
about. He
Well,
pointed
that's
out.
one that I just looked at it and picked it out. It's,
Yeah, this is what John is going to go
all right, yeah, right now we'll have two businesses in there. My son Sam and I, we're in the commodity and brokerage business, and we're renting right downtown right now. So when we put this building up, it'll be for the spray foam, and we'll also have our commodity business up there also.
So, what we need to do tonight is approve having this agreement drawn up, is that correct?
It is
Well, the agreement and the deed is already drafted. It would just be a matter of approving, I guess, execution.
Approve the idea and then, formalize it, because we're gonna have to go in and sign some papers.
Okay.
But this way we can start pressing, start ordering supplies and start getting the building going.
You want to do that before you even have signed paperwork?
Get plans and, I'm not gonna dig any dirt on it, but, I'm a kind of a good faith kind of guy.
I like the idea of having yet another business
Yeah.
standalone up in the industrial park. I'm all in favor of this.
At the planning commission meeting last night, John Waller wrote or came up with these findings that relate to the comprehensive plan. I don't know if you got a chance to read it or not, but I think all 5 findings tick off a box in that comprehensive plan we just approved. So I would make a motion that we move forward and sign both the agreement for transferring of the lot and the quitclaim deed.
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve the agreement and the quitclaim deed, is that right?
Yeah.
What your motion is? Any further discussion?
The only thing that we're gonna need for the signatures on the agreements and stuff is actually, it's, going to Foam Express LLC. Who is the registered agent or principal or president or whatever that we would need to put on your sign?
We have 3 members. Be myself, my son Sam, and then Arturo Villagomez.
Do you want all 3 on there to sign?
We have to have all 3.
No president, okay, so we'll need, I'll just have to revise it to reflect the 3 individuals, so. Full names.
I can get you all that and addresses and.
Okay.
And,
Got it.
probably need a tax ID too, which we've got.
Not for what we're doing, we don't, but.
Anything else that needs to be discussed? Lindsay? Then we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
John, you still have anything?
Nope.
Okay. Back to utility Neptune upgrade consideration, and this is, we've got Neptune in here for our utility
It reads,
meter reading and billing, I think, and right now they have to go around and collect the data from different points in town, right?
Right, and which won't change. We'll still have to do it, it'll just be faster reading with upgrade. And also, our current software is no longer supported by Neptune.
Okay. We have this in the 2023 budget for water and sewer, but they're asking that we do it now, and this would just be transferring.
actually, the water and sewer utility would pay for it now. We're just putting it in the budget for next year's budget, but the system needs to be upgraded now, instead of waiting until next year to do it. It's good, it's good, it's gonna be presented in the budgets that you guys are gonna approve, but it's one of those, it's not a want, this is a need, because the software's not supported, the device we use to read is outdated, so. I think it's $9,600 is the device, which gets split between water and sewer, and then there's our annual licensing fees or whatever that we have to do every year that we do now, so.
Yeah, it's a total of $11,984.
To get the thing in place, but 9,600 of that is the Neptune device,
The data collector, yeah.
data collector.
I was incorrect when I said could all be done from City Hall.
Yeah, you were really wrong.
I was really wrong, yep.
They still have to drive around in a big
It just
truck.
cuts down.
Oh, just kidding.
Jeez.
Well, I informed you wrong, because that's the way it was explained to me.
Okay.
Yeah, and I had thought that, but I was wrong. So I'll take full blame for it.
Keep shaking that tree, keep shaking that tree.
No.
So how long does it take to drive around and do this?
Right now, it takes about 2.5 hours, and it'll take less with this. This one will read.
It
up
only
to
take
50
2 hours and
meters.
15 minutes now.
It'll read up to 50 meters at a time, depending on population in the neighborhood. It'll pick them up way faster.
Okay.
And it'll actually be able to, we get a lot of phone calls for high water usage. Well, I'll be able to take our tablet or our iPad over with this on there and show them the last 97 days of their water usage. And show them the stuff, so.
So this is, you said paid for out of split between water and
Water,
sewer?
Sewer, yeah.
I move that we approve the update of the Neptune system, utility system.
I second.
Moved and seconded that we approve the update of the Neptune facility system. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Park board
You can't
minutes.
leave now.
Those are in the agenda. Is there anything that's got to be talked about on that? We have a motion to approve those.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve the park board minutes. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Otter Tail County Country Membership Association membership.
Yep, that's the annual thing. Up on the screen basically is what was in the packet. It shows the statistics, community impact report for Pelican Rapids in 2022. Every year, and it was budgeted for next year too in the general budget. The draft was approved. The city in the past has always done that $3,000 clam digger membership, and that's what they're wanting council to consider approving tonight.
I'm moved to approve.
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve the Otter Tail Country membership. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Administrator report.
Since the last meeting, I set the agenda with the city clerk and prepped for the meeting. I met with the downtown commercial business owner to discuss some building plans that they had. Had telephone conversations with CETA's Don Norsung that was brought up, and then also with the owner, Ron Ziegler. We plan to have them at the October 25th meeting. Chief and I performed a police department job interview and met with Mayor Frazier and Chief Statham regarding this cannabinoid issue. Mayor had attended something at the county level, and he just kind of wanted to talk to Jeff and I a little bit about it. Met with Ottertail County Assessor's Office at the Islamic Center. We were the only ones that have a key to the building, so they asked if I would go and let them in the building so they could do an assessment of it or a review of it, because they had to report back to the county in that whole matter of the taking and giving back, if that's what happens with the building. I attended the city council work session with Burton Funeral Homes regarding the upstairs. Attended the last night, or September 26th Planning Commission meeting, and then I also reviewed a zoning and construction permit and inspected a property to confirm the planned project that a homeowner wanted to do. That's my report.
Thank you.
Any questions for Don? I got one. What was the result of the interview with the police?
We're going through background checks and that type of thing now, and hopefully on the 11th, although I won't be here, that we would have a recommendation for you that the chief can bring for you on the October 11th meeting.
Okay.
I don't think we did 17.
Well, Planning Commission minutes.
So we did.
Well, you asked him if he had anything else.
Yeah, I asked him if he
Oh.
had,
The
yeah.
minutes were just in the packet for your
Yeah.
review, unless you had any questions.
I checked it off mine with that. With that. There's a reason.
I think Kevin wants to extend the meeting here. Anything else here?
Move to adjourn.
I'm just gonna adjourn the meeting. I've got that power and I'm gonna do it, so we are adjourned.
Is that a record?